folks that are in the doorway, we're going to want to close those doors. So if you can come in, there should be a few seats available. Hopefully we can find places. Michelle. All right, we're about to get started. If I could have us quiet down. And did Pam step away? Okay. I believe we have everything we needed to open the public hearing. Actually, I'm sorry. We're missing a couple board members too, so we don't have everything we need. Bear with us, folks. There should be a laptop. While we're getting, or do we have everything we need to open the public hearing? Thank you. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing for the Hopewell Animal Hospital amended site plan?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
It's on that screen here.
Okay. Does someone know how to toggle it to bring it up onto the projector? We may have to move the cord over. Yeah. Is it all function F4 or something like that?
Function F8.
And is the cord plugged into that laptop? Different laptop for the last app? Bear with us, folks. We'll get there.
Why don't you just get up and tell us about it?
There we go.
There we go.
Great. Thank you. So if you'd like to just give us an overview of what you're requesting and your plan?
Sure.
And we'll open.
My name is Kyle Ahern. I'm with the Chazen Companies. I'm here representing the applicant, Hopewell Animal Hospital. The existing facility, actually, can you scroll that over to the right?
There's a full screen button, Michelle, up on the toolbar. It's all the way over to the right, just to the left of the word tools. That should open the plan up. To the left of the tools, the first button. Try that one. There you go.
All right, so the existing facility, you can see right here near the northern section of the parcel that's being used at the
And just
moment.
orient us with the road and where you are.
Sure, we have Route 52 along
Great.
the southern edge of the parcel.
Thank you.
And then you have your existing building here, the existing veterinary office. It's approximately 2,466 square feet. The applicant's proposing an expansion of the building to an additional 4,973 square feet that you can see here to the south of the existing portion of that building. That proposed section of the building will be where the new medical office space will be held. Back in the existing building, the first floor will become storage space, and the second floor will continue to be a second floor apartment. To go along with the larger facility, we have increased parking. We've provided a new increased on-site subsurface sewage disposal system. And we've also provided a reserve area that the Department of Health will be submitting our plans to them, and they will need to approve it as well.
I'm sorry, the reserve area?
Yeah, as part of your septic design, you need to provide 100%, for future
It's
expansion or
something
for.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
It's a veterinary hospital.
Since the last time we were before the planning board, we've made a couple quick revisions. This turnaround area for the garbage truck and fire trucks, we've increased the size of it to come in compliance with the New York State Fire Code. You can see here there's a walkway between two of the parking spaces. That's so that if you're in the parking lot, you can have a direct access to the front entrance, there's a porch right here, and that's where the main entrance is. The building size was increased by 286 square feet to accommodate the proposed equipment in the operating room. And to accommodate that, we've provided 2 more banked parking spaces. And that's about it.
Okay. And I understand you haven't yet completed your ARB approval?
We were before the ARB. They are, in general, they like our proposal. They like the rendering. They just need some more detail. So we'll be going back before the ARB on October 2nd.
Okay.
Can we pass this around? I mean, I think you should show it. It is a beautiful building.
It's just that rendering is not accurate to the current footprint of the plans. That was the concern of the ARB.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's why we're not displaying the actual, normally during public hearing, we would display the elevations of the building, but the Architectural Review Board, the ARB, hasn't yet completed their review of this site, and they've requested some changes to those drawings. So we will adjourn this public hearing, and
Yep.
at the adjourned public hearing for this, we'll have the final renderings as approved by as approved by the ARB. Okay. Any questions or comments from board members?
The apartment. I assume the apartment is somebody who's an attendant for the animals, right?
It's
This
the
is not like somebody's
tech.
living there who's
Correct.
disassociated.
Right, it's the
This is-
tech for the office.
Accessory to the use, right?
Right. I mean, that was just making that clear to everybody. I know it was stated in the documents, but I had a question about, I know we've been, the drainage. Let's get that out now, because where do we stand with the drainage proposal on this?
The project is a redevelopment of an existing site, and they're not at the 1 acre of disturbance, so their obligation as far as stormwater wasn't as intense as some other projects. They have designed some improvements. They have a ponding, or a small detention area near the front of the project. I mean, they've done erosion control plan, sediment control plan, but we hadn't asked them to do like the full SWIP because they're not required to by regulations.
Okay.
And we will be subject to a DOT highway work permit since we're connecting the drainage into the structure in Route 52. So the DOT may, if they think there's a capacity problem there, they may come back and ask us to do a more thorough investigation into that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members?
No, I think it's a great
Okay.
proposal. I think I realize this rendering may not be accurate, but I think it is a beautiful building.
Okay. Brendan, anything from a traffic perspective before we open for public comment?
The applicant did provide tracking diagrams for the garbage truck and the East Fishkill fire apparatus. One thing we did ask is just some additional diagrams to show the critical movements off of 52. They showed some of the movements off 52, but not all of them. Another thing that we requested, and they did modify this plan, they shifted the entrance driveway to be opposite the gas station driveway across the street, so they line up, and that's something that we had requested and that they
Okay,
did
good.
in this submittal.
Okay.
Parking lot he mentioned. I think the only other thing, the expansion of the building. That we asked them to provide some traffic data for that, just so we had an understanding of how much additional traffic the expanded facility would be, and they did submit to us an analysis of that, and basically it results in 13 additional trips in the AM peak hour and 15 additional trips in the PM peak hour. We did review that. We think that their estimates are reasonable, and we don't anticipate that having a significant impact on the traffic on 52.
I was going to say, that's 13 cars within the peak hour versus about how many that would go by. It's got to be a couple thousand, right?
52?
Yeah.
In this area, probably in the peak hour, yeah, it's hundreds. It's probably in the 300 to 400 range.
Oh, I bet it's more than that.
So
Okay.
in each direction, so.
Okay.
But, that's the additional traffic from the expanded building. So
Okay. All right.
The parking, I mean, it does seem like a lot of parking. I mean, are there going to be that many people bringing pets? Or is there going to be like a doggy daycare or something like that, or is it?
No, we don't anticipate any.
We just need you to come up to the mic, or we can't, and we need to capture your name.
Jerry Scheck. We do not plan on doing any boarding, kenneling. We don't anticipate doggy daycare at this moment. So any increase would be strictly, hopefully, clients, patients,
But it does.
and staff to obviously staff the larger size facility.
Because it does seem a lot of parking. I mean,
Well, I think it
realize
is.
It's not excessive.
Pardon?
It's not excessive. My wife works for a vet, I know.
Okay.
It fills up.
I guess a lot of the dogs drive themselves.
You'd be surprised.
Or maybe they should.
They don't carpool.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, anything we should cover before we open for public comment?
Yeah, just, my last request letter had asked about your correspondence with DEC, and I believe you've received correspondence since the last submission, and you submitted some stuff. Could you just update us on what the DEC said, and if there's any restrictions on tree clearing or anything?
Yep.
I just want them to update the information from New York State DEC, and if there's going to be any restrictions on tree clearing regarding the Indiana bat.
Yes, we will be adding a note to the plan that will summarize the months during the year, the times during the year that tree clearing will be allowed on the site. The DEC was concerned about, they didn't identify definite Indiana bat roosting habitat on the site, but they said basically as a precaution and best practice that we will limit disturbance between October 15th and March 1st.
I've seen a lot of people in the back going like this. If you could just speak more.
Sure. Yeah, we will be adding a note to the plan that will limit tree clearing from October 15th to March 31st, and the reason for that is to limit the disturbance to Indiana bat habitat as per the DEC.
Thank you. Joe, anything to cover?
Yeah, one of the other items, it's kind of drainage related, is the floodplain, and their office provided information on how they determined the elevation for the floodplain in this area. That's something we'll need to take a look at, but they did provide some information on the elevation of the floodplain and acknowledge that they'll need to go through the floodplain permit process.
Is
as
the
part of
building
the
itself
work.
above the base flood elevation, or do we think we're going to have to change it?
The new building is going to be a couple feet above, and that's part of the reason they have some ramps and grade changes on the
Okay.
site.
So is it more for the parking lot, or or drainage?
It's just the building itself has to be elevated above the floodplain.
Okay.
Some of the features, I mean, they had that small ponding area in the front for drainage. They're also showing porous pavement toward the rear where the turnaround is, so they're making an effort not to increase the impervious, to a large extent over what's already out there.
Okay. Thank you. Scott, anything else?
No.
Okay. All right, if there's anyone here who would like to speak for or against the Hopewell Animal Hospital amended site plan, all we ask is that you come on up and you can sign in on the clipboard. Is there anyone here who would like to speak? Going once? Going twice?
What if we told you it was an air structure?
No. All right.
Maybe not.
To clarify, this is not an air structure. We can't close you tonight because you're not done with the
Right.
ARB, and we don't have the drawings to share with the public. So
Okay.
we can adjourn you to, when's your next visit to the ARB?
We'll be there on October 2nd.
Okay, our agenda for the 7th is fairly full. We can move you to the 7th, but that's where the sports dome just was placed. So the October 21st meeting is also open, totally up to you.
21st, please.
I'm not sure why you said that. Do I have a motion to adjourn the Hopewell Animal Hospital amended site plan to the 21st of October? Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the Muse at Hopewell, 68-unit workforce housing on Route 82 and Palin Road. And we'll just give you a moment to switch over. Pam, do we have everything we need to be able to open this public hearing? Okay. Since we're putting the pictures up on the screen, it's okay if you want to turn those around to face the public. That would be fine with us.
Okay.
That's fine, yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay.
Just give us one moment. Okay, do I have a motion to open the public hearing for the Muse at Hopewell?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. What I'll have you do first is give an overview of your project, but then I just want to talk a little bit about what the process is going to be in front of our board before we open for further comments and questions. So I'll let you go ahead and do your overview first, and then I'll give a little bit of an overview of what the planning process is going to look like from here on out.
Fine. Good evening, Chairwoman G, members of the board. My name is Ken Carney. I'm the president and founder of the Carney Realty Group. We're a development company. We've been in business for 25 years. Our work is focused primarily in Dutchess County. We started in Dutchess County in 1990, and we've worked here consistently for the last 25 years, in addition to Northern Westchester, Yorktown, Somers, Orange County, Sullivan County, Greene County. We are here tonight to talk about a proposal on Route 82 and Joe's Mother's Road. It's called the Muse at Hopewell. The Muse at Hopewell is a 68-unit affordable housing development located on a 9.2-acre site adjacent to New York State Route 82 in the town of Fishkill. The proposed site plan includes... I'm sorry? The proposed site plan includes 26 townhomes that are located along the Route 82 frontage. These townhomes consist of 14 two-bedroom units and 12 three-bedroom units. 12 of the two-bedroom units will rent for $1,045 a month and will be available to families with an income up to $49,860. That's 60% of the area median income. 10 of the three bedrooms will rent for $1,175 monthly and are available to families with an income up to $53,880 annual. The remaining two two-bedroom townhomes and two three-bedroom townhomes will rent, the two bedrooms will rent for $1,275 a month The 3 bedrooms will rent for $13.75 a month. The 2 bedrooms will have income limits up to approximately $75,000, and the 2 other 3 bedrooms will have incomes up to approximately $80,820. The site plan also includes 2 two-story buildings toward the rear of the site. The one building, Jeff, can you point? Oh, yeah. We are partnering with Abilities First. Abilities First is a certified OPWDD provider out of Poughkeepsie, located on Over Rocker Road. We are partnering with them. 20 to 25% of the units, 14 to 17 units, will be set aside for the special needs population of the developmentally disabled. That building will also include, if you see the bump out on the rear, that's a community room just for the tenants, or targeting the tenants in that building, and there will also be an office for Abilities First for one of their case managers to come and do case management for their special needs population. In addition, that building is designed to target, in addition to developmentally disabled, it's designed to target seniors as well. It's a 2-story center-loaded corridor with an elevator. The 4th building has 14 2-bedrooms and 4 1-bedrooms. We will be renting those units with up to incomes at 60% of area median income. The set-aside for the developmentally disabled population isn't necessarily all going to be in that one building. We may have a couple of tenants that will need 2 bedrooms, or may want to take a 1-bedroom in the other building as well. The project itself is financed through private funding, a permanent mortgage provided by the Community Preservation Corporation. They access funds from the New York State Pension Fund. But the primary source of funding is a tax credit program. The tax credit program started in 1986 as a result of the tax reform in 1986 under President Reagan. The idea was to promote private investment in the affordable housing business. And what they were trying to do was to get the private sector to invest in affordable housing, and therefore get the government out of affordable housing. The program started in 1986. It was done on a year-by-year basis to see how it would work. It was successful. It was signed into permanent law sometime in the 90s by President Clinton. The way the program works, tax credits are allocated to each state based on a state's population, and then that state puts out an RFP for the allocation of the tax credits. It's a highly, highly competitive process. We've gone through it. We've been awarded about a dozen times. We've been successful. We've built up a pretty good track record with the Division of Housing over the last 15 years. The way the tax credits work is each development will receive tax credits for the amount of money that is invested into the development. For example, if you have a $10 million community, you can get 9% tax credit on that $10 million over a period of 10 years. So in essence, it's a 90% credit. So if you have a $10 million project, and there's different variations here, I'm giving you a short version. Those $9 million in tax credits are then sold, if you will, to investors. Our investors, for the last 7 deals we've done, has been TD Bank. We've closed 7 deals, and before year's end, we're going to close another deal over in Pauling. In the way the development is structured, we form a limited partnership. This limited partnership would have 2 general partners. It'll have an affiliate controlled by the Carneys, my son Sean and myself, and our not-for-profit partner, Abilities First. We control the day-to-day operations of this development. We are responsible for construction completion. We are responsible for the management we are responsible for successful management for the entire term of the limited partnership. The limited partnership is for a period of 15 years. So what happens is TD Bank comes in as a limited partner. They're limited as far as what they're looking for. They're looking for the tax credits to flow to them, and then at the end of 15 years, they exit, and we retain ownership of the property long term. It's a 15-year limited partnership. But what drives the limited partnership are the guarantees. The general partners give guarantees that the property is going to run and function as it is planned. You will not be funded again with additional tax credits if you don't do what you're supposed to do. Our style. We have gained a reputation for hands-on management style. We, when this development is finished, applications will come in. We check each application. We do background checks. We do criminal background checks. We do credit checks, prior landlord history. Then we do personal interviews. And we ask the hard questions. And if we let people know what we expect, what we're going to be looking for, and how we run our operations. We have an on-site manager who will be on-site 5 days a week. In addition, we will have an on-site superintendent who will be there 24/7. The on-site superintendent is our eyes and ears when the on-site manager is not present. Our regional manager actually lives in the next town over in Wappingers. We have made significant changes to the previous proposal that was in front of this board 2 years ago. A few of those are as follows. One, we added the townhomes. We feel that the townhomes replicate home ownership. From a management standpoint, it's a better model, and it fits our management philosophy. In addition, we lowered the 3 bedrooms. The previous proposal, I believe, was close to 50% 3 bedrooms. It's a very difficult model to successfully manage long term. So we lowered that. In addition, we have raised the income limits on our units. We are now on the townhomes, like I said, 22 of the townhomes are at 60%, and 4 are actually above 60%. In addition to that, we've taken in a partner, Abilities First, who will speak to you in a few minutes, and we have set aside 14 to 17 units for the developmentally disabled population. So we feel that that these changes that we've made will ensure that the development will work and be managed properly long term. This development will not be tax exempt. It won't be. It will be taxed according to New York State property tax law. We don't flip properties. We own properties long term. We have tax credit limited partnerships. I believe right now I think we have 11 or 12. We have other properties throughout the Hudson Valley, and my family is now involved in the business, and the second generation is in, and hopefully the third generation. So tonight with us is our not-for-profit partner, Abilities First. In addition to them, I'm here with my partner and son, Sean Carney. In addition, we have Jeff Cantamo and Eric Schlobum from Inside Engineering. They'll talk a little bit about the site plan. And then we have A.J. Coppola from Coppola Associates, who can talk a little bit about the architecture. At this time, I just want Jeff Fox, the Executive Director of Abilities First, to come up and say a few words.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As Ken mentioned, my name is Jeff Fox. I'm the Executive Director of Abilities First. Abilities First, you may know as rehab programs until 2008, has a 50-plus year history in Dutchess County. We have about 35 locations throughout Dutchess County right now, and our mission is to provide services and supports for children and adults with developmental disabilities from the ages of 3 all the way up till the end of life, across 8 different kinds of programs and services, and our commitment to our mission has never been stronger. What many people probably know about individuals with developmental disabilities is that 30 years ago, most people would be living in an institutional setting where they'd be subjected to quite horrible treatment. In the last 20 years or so, people would primarily be living in what's known as a group home, which is much better than an institution. But what is frowned upon now by the state and federal government about group homes is that if you're a person with a disability living in a group home, the only other people living in that group home are also people with developmental disabilities. The agenda of the state and federal government now is to create residential opportunities for adults with disabilities where they're integrated with the general population. This is just the beginning of that movement, and we're very proud to be part of that. In addition to that, the people that will be living in this setting will be adults. There'll be people who do not have criminal histories. There'll be people who are employed. There'll be people who are strong members of their current communities, but are in situations where they need a different kind of living opportunity, and we want to be able to give that to them. The other thing that makes this unique for our folks is that this will be what's known as an uncertified setting. A certified setting is a residential setting that's licensed and certified by OPWDD, and that comes with a lot of regulation, and it's not very cost effective. We have many people getting our services now in certified settings that are not integrated, that are not cost effective, and don't allow people to integrate with the general population. This project will solve both of those problems. On the other hand, we also have about a 500 employee workforce. Because of the way our system is set up, many of the employees that we have will also qualify to live in this setting if they so choose, which we think is another benefit of this project. So that's why we're involved, that's our interest, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jeff Cantelmo from Insight Engineering from Carmel, New York, here with Eric Schlobaum, my associate. I'm just going to quickly walk through the physical part of the site plan, which I know the board is somewhat familiar with. We've been working with the board for the past several months to improve upon the layout and make it function as best we can. As Ken pointed out, we front on Route 82. Palin Road is down here. We're located to the west side or northern side of the railroad tracks, which run along our rear property line. Fishkill Road is located right here. Our proposed entrance is proposed as a boulevard landscaped entrance off of Route 82. We will have 2 egress lanes to facilitate the exiting traffic. As Ken pointed out, we have 3 building clusters of townhomes. There are 8 townhomes in this cluster, 9 here and 9 here. The 2-story buildings at the rear are the multifamily buildings, and we've provided ample parking and talked a bit about the parking numbers with the planning board. We are land banking some parking, which we don't believe we will need based on our anticipated population, but we have provided area for them. One point Ken didn't hit upon is that there is a historic house on the property. That house will remain as an integral part of the community. It'll be the caretaker or superintendent's residence. Sewer service, we're proposing to connect to the Hamlet sewer service at Trinkle Lane by running force main up Route 82. And we plan on tying into the town's Hamlet Water District with an extension of a water main down Fishkill Road. Stormwater management, we've provided a mix of subsurface and above surface stormwater management practices which have been integrated into the landscape, and we have to meet a whole host of state standards as well as town standards relative to that. We have worked quite a bit based on the comments from the board on the landscaping along the Route 82 corridor in particular. We've introduced some berms behind building number 1. We've supplemented the landscaping along that area. We've retained a pretty mature stand of trees behind buildings 2 and 3 and have supplemented that with proposed landscaping. A.J. Coppola from Coppola Associates has prepared some visual renderings of what can be expected along Route 82, and I'll leave that for A.J. to speak to. As far as our zoning goes, just to point out, we are in an R1 residential zone, and we are seeking the application of an overlay for a special use permit for workforce housing. We have demonstrated to the board that we do meet all of the requirements for that special use permit. With that, I'm going to turn it over to AJ, let him speak a bit about the architecture and the visual renderings.
Thank you, Jeff. My name is A.J. Coppola. I'm the project architect. Just briefly, before I get into the visual renderings, I just wanted to make mention of a couple construction items that will be incorporated into this project because I think they're important to mention. As we would normally do with our affordable housing projects, we'll be using a higher degree of durable materials in the construction of these buildings. For example, the exteriors would be concrete plank siding, and more durable surfaces would be included throughout the construction. Two things I want to mention regarding the energy efficiency and the sustainable features we're going to be having here. Number one, this project is going to be submitted to NYSERDA, which is the New York State agency that you would apply to regarding rebates for energy efficiency. So we would be applying to NYSERDA's low-rise residential program, as we've done on other projects. That project will basically ensure that our energy efficiency is at an extremely high level, that our units are very tight. We'll be doing air flow tests on each apartment door in each townhouse to make sure that the air sealing is to a very high level in terms of infiltration. So that would be a program that we would be involved with here. The second program that we would be doing is LEED for homes. LEED is, for those of you who might have heard of LEED, LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. LEED is basically the highest and most well-known green rating system used in this country. It's monitored by and created by the United States Green Building Council. So we are starting to do LEED for Homes certified projects on other projects that we're working on now, and this project will also be included in that, and that'll be basically certified at what they call a certified level. So that's basically a quick overview of the construction and some of the features. And as I've been speaking, we've been going through the visual renderings that we prepared. Basically, in a nutshell, we prepared, from the board's input last time, we prepared 6 renderings. There are 2 views, an A view and a B view. And basically three different views for each orientation. So there's one up there right now, which is no trees. The second view is basically at 1-year growth, that's there, and the third is at full growth. And we've also taken
Is full growth 5 years, 10 years?
I think 5 to 10 years.
Usually, I'd say 10 years.
10 years.
So, and then we've also included, that's an elevation that basically shows a better representation of the materials and the colors. The modeling that we did for the visual rendering is just basically to show the massing, the landscaping, and the screening in relationship to the road. So I brought copies of that tonight that I could leave with the board or with your secretary, and that's where we're at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ken or Jeff, are you going to come on back up?
Thank you, Chairman. That concludes our presentation, so.
Okay. What I wanted to do is, just before we move into questions from the board, comments from our professionals, and then we'll open certainly for all of the public comment, I wanted to just walk us through a little bit of where we are as a planning board with this application and what we've done so far and what we expect to do as we move forward. So many of you were here and recall a previous application called Homesteads. This applicant is not Homesteads, but they did request to use the Homesteads application information. So they submitted, through the Homesteads project, there was a large amount of environmental information submitted to us from traffic studies and things like that. So this applicant asked to use that same information. Since it's the same site, they had a similar layout, a similar project. The planning board agreed to that. And in doing that, what we are focused on, and one of the things that hopefully you hear tonight as the applicant is speaking about it, and as you'll hear the planning board discussing things, we're focused on what enhancements or differences has this applicant made to that original application. So that original application was withdrawn, it went away. We've allowed this applicant to use much of the same information, although not exclusively the same information. And we've really focused on what are the main differences between the original application and this applicant's proposal. So we have several things that we've noticed, including the reduction in the 3-bedroom units. So same number of units, but a reduction in bedroom count has a significant impact on schools and things like that. We've looked at the layout of the site. You may remember this used to have kind of a boulevard entrance with a traffic circle. This layout not only provides an emergency access, so sort of a U-shaped access, although only one driveway would be officially open, there'd be emergency access in the event it was needed. But we also felt that the layout of the buildings was less impactful to the neighborhood, because without having the apartment-style buildings facing the road, having more the townhouse-style buildings facing the road, we felt was better. And folks may disagree, but that was the planning board's thinking as we looked at what are the options and opportunities if we're looking at the layout again. So one of the things that the board has done, again, in laying out what the differences are, and certainly the tenancy and the work with Abilities First and things like that was important to us. We're looking in the process as we go forward, the first thing we need to do, and for those of you, again, who remember the Homesteads application, part of that application included a zoning change. So back in 2012, the town board acted and made that zoning change. So at this point, the zoning exists, but the zoning requires a special permit process. So in order for this applicant to successfully continue, they need to have a negative declaration issued by the planning board that will allow them, through a completed seeker process, to go back to the town board and obtain a special permit. What that means is not that our public hearing process ends. Our public hearing process will continue, because we won't be finishing site plan until we know whether or not a special permit will be issued, until we know if there's any conditions the town board imposes on that special permit, et cetera. But what that means is that at the end of our discussion this evening, and assuming that the board is comfortable, we will offer a resolution to reaffirm the negative declaration that we made with the site plan for the original project. And it's a little bit different because it doesn't, again, include that zoning change. The zoning already now exists for the town. But that's what you'll hear us do as we move through the evening tonight. That's how we'll likely end this portion of the public hearing process. But that, again, I want to just emphasize, while you may hear us take that action, it does not close out the review of the site plan, the input that you'll give us, and the things that we'll continue to talk about as we go through the rest of the site plan approval process. So you'll also hear tonight an adjournment of this public hearing to a future date. I thought it was important to just describe that, because it may feel odd to you as we start to read an action or a resolution at the end of this meeting. We're not ending the public hearing process. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear for everybody. We'll have you come up for questions as soon as we open for public comments, sir. We'll have you come up for questions as soon as we open for public comment. So again, John, I guess, is there anything else that we should add about the process as we go forward?
I think you kind of encapsulated it.
Okay. Okay. I was just checking I was just checking to make sure with the town attorney that I didn't miss any of the steps that will come forward as we go forward. Excuse me. So with that being said, I guess I would like to.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question, John.
Yeah.
As I recall, the last time around, there was a strong motivation relative to affordable housing and its lack of availability in East Fishkill. Is, with all the changes in this, With all the changes in this proposal, does this still count? Do all these
It
units
does.
still count towards the affordable housing?
It does because it meets the criteria that's contemplated under the code and under the special permit.
Yeah, John, you just need to pull the mic closer if you would, yeah.
It does because it meets the criteria under the special permit for that type of housing. And as you know, from the Berenson case of the late 70s, early 80s or so, every municipality in the state of New York is required to look at housing in its municipal boundary lines and to have available affordable housing for people by, as a right, or in this case, by special permit. So every municipality is supposed to bear that burden, and so that we don't have exclusive counties and towns and not so exclusive to counties and towns.
All right, folks, I'm sorry. John, we just need you to pull the mic a little bit
Okay.
closer to you.
No.
We're not picking up
So I
your
was
voice.
indicating that we had the Berenson case that came down in the late 70s or so. I knew some people that worked on the case. And it indicated that municipal authority should provide for housing in its towns, in its county, that gave a diverse supply of housing. And you can't just have all exclusive housing in a given town, given county. So that's an object and a goal that every zoning ordinance faces when the master plan and the zoning ordinance is drawn up by the town. So in this case, there is an income component here, and it would qualify for looking at it in terms of a affordable housing type of situation.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments from board members? Okay. Brendan, I guess we'll just go around quickly. Is there anything that you wanted to bring up with regard to traffic at the site before we open for public comment?
I just, I'll mention that we did evaluate the traffic when this project was in front of us as homesteads. It's a 68-unit facility, which in general, it will generate about 34 cars in the peak hours in the AM and the PM.
I'm sorry, we're having a really hard time. You got to pull the mic closer. All right.
Pretend you're a lounge act,
What I wanted to indicate is from the studies that the applicant provided as part of the homestead application, it indicated that this facility would generate approximately 34 cars in the AM and PM peak hours, distributed amongst 52. We did identify that the actual site driveway had a fairly poor level of service, similar to other intersecting roads or driveways in this section of 82 due to the high volume of traffic on 82. One of the things that the applicant did do, I think Jeff brought it up, was they did slide the access to the facility to the west, closer to the commercial developments on 82. We've asked the applicant to show the accommodation of the East Fishkill fire apparatus and also a potential for a school bus to be able to enter and make it through the site. They've provided those turning diagrams. The site does have an emergency access entrance to the east of the property that's going to be gated but can be used in the event of an emergency. And I think the only other thing, indicated is that the new access points onto 82 will be, under the jurisdiction of the New York State DOT, and the applicant would need to seek a highway work permit from the New York State DOT for the two entrances onto Route 82.
Thank you, Brendan. Michelle, anything you want to cover before we open for public comment?
Sure. I just want to clarify that although the applicant did use a lot of the previous materials for the environmental review, we did require that they update the visual renderings, and we've just received them the last week, so we will be looking at them for the landscaping and reviewing the landscaping plan in relation to the visuals that we received. And also, they were asked to update the previous natural resources or threatened and endangered species reports that they had done on the site, and those were all updated and submitted to DEC, and we did receive comments back from DEC which the applicant has incorporated into the site design and as notes on the site plan.
Anything unexpected?
No, it was essentially the same information that we got back on the previous review, but I just wanted to make sure that there hadn't been any changes
Okay.
related to threatened and endangered species, and I wanted to make sure that there hadn't been any changes related to threatened and endangered species on the site.
Okay, folks, I'm sorry, I know you want to make comment, we can't hear when you guys talk. Take it easy. Michelle, I'll just have you hold the mic a little bit closer.
Maybe if you guys got up and podium?
Sure. I just wanted to clarify that although I'm sorry? That's better? Okay. I'm sorry, I can't hear what I sound like to you guys, so. I just wanted to clarify that although we accepted the review documentation from the previous environmental review, we did ask them to update the documentation where appropriate. For instance, I asked them to update the ecological reports on the threatened and endangered species because I wasn't sure whether or not any changes had happened in between the time when the previous application was submitted and now. So they did update that. They did resubmit to DEC, and we did get comments back from DEC, which the applicant has applied to the site plan and included as notes on the site plan. We also asked them to update the visuals, and I will be reviewing the visuals now, and they've just been received this past week in regard to the landscaping, and probably have additional comments on the landscaping once we've had a chance to digest it and review.
And the lighting plan?
The lighting plan as well will be included in that review.
Okay. Thank you. Christian, if you want to try your mic, and if it doesn't work, we'll have you come up to the podium.
Testing.
Are we good?
Is that good? You can hear? You good? Okay. Our review is ongoing, as you said, and currently we are working with the applicant, and the applicant is working through our office and with Mr. Bryant, the town engineer, to finalize the engineering aspects of the water and sewer hookup. Additionally, the applicant has provided a new SWIP for the proposed development project that is different from the previous application. We are continuing to review that as well to all the New York State standards and ensuring that all that pre-development and post-development runoff associated with the addition of all this of the impervious area and the impact to runoff is going to be mitigated through all the standards that the state that the state has. And as Chairwoman has already stated, our review will continue even after a reaffirmation of the neg deck is complete until any final approval is granted. Up to this point, since the last submission, they had not resubmitted any additional information to us. So we're just continuing to work through the technical aspects. So that is where we stand from our aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott or John, anything to add before we open for comment?
The only thing I'd add as far as water and sewers, we have asked the applicant, and they've agreed to provide some excess capacity for both the water and sewer should the town want to extend beyond or in this immediate area, water and sewer service.
Okay. Great. All right, if there are no further questions from board members, what I'd like to do is similar to our sports dome tonight. We have a sign-in sheet up here at the front corner of the table. I'd just like anyone who'd like to speak this evening, we'll give you a couple minutes to come on up and sign in. And if you're the first person that signs in, we'll ask you to come up to the podium. But it'll be a minute or two while we get started. We'll give everybody a chance to come up and sign in for us.
Not too many people, huh?
No, not at all.
No, huh? You get the phone? Actually, the thing is, right, see, it's different.
Have some more chocolate. I'm telling. Chocolate. And by the way, is there any beer?
list? Mike? Mike, what? Come on up.
I signed up first because I want to go home.
I don't understand that. What do you mean?
Well,
This party is just getting started.
the definition of rhetoric, the 3 C's of rhetoric are clear, concise, and comprehensive. These gentlemen got an A+ as far as I'm concerned. In my 46 years in this town, I haven't seen every planning board meeting, but this was the best I've ever experienced. And it sets a standard, because they're not here. If they were here, I'd say it to their face. They got about a D. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mike K?
Yeah. Mike Coy or Mike K, he signed in at the very beginning of the night at 7 o'clock. Is he still here?
Okay, the next name?
Clara Moran.
Clara? Claire, sorry, I apologize.
Hi, my name is Claire Moran. This is my husband, Tom Moran. Bear with me, I get really nervous when I talk in public, although I'm doing a lot of it lately. I think that this Muse project is the best thing that has happened to East Fishkill in a long time. We have a son with developmental delays. Thomas is 30. Thomas works in the community, drives in the community, lives in the community. We live off Harrigan Road. He does everything. He volunteers in the community. You wouldn't know to see him that he is developmentally delayed. He was deprived of oxygen at birth. And because of that, he has problems with time, math, balancing budgets, monies, things like that. He can park a car. He's a New York State certified tow truck driver. He can do those things on your yearly things on your car, the inspections on your car, and he's licensed through New York State for that as well. But ask him what 10 and 15 is, and he hasn't a clue. Ask him how much a bill is to be paid, and he hasn't a clue. These houses, these apartments, offer him freedom. The freedom to move out from mom and pop at the age of 30 years of age. It offers us the freedom that when we pass, our son will be taken care of, and he'll be able to live independently amongst his peers. You would never know to look at Thomas that there is anything wrong. Talk to him for 5 minutes and you will, guaranteed it. But he's hardworking, he's in your community, he volunteers in your community, and he deserves to have an apartment in this town. On the other point of that, that's only 15, 20 apartments. On the other part of this, everybody's boo-hooing about the workforce housing. Most of the town employees could not afford to live in the higher end of these apartments. Do you all know that? Do you all know that the starting rate of pay in Dutchess County is like $12 an hour? And that you're considered to have a high-paying job if you're making $18 an hour? Who tries to raise a family on that? This is disgusting that you all don't welcome this. This is our answer. This is terrible. You need to embrace this. That I am the face. We are the face of the townhouses, but we are the face of this community. It needs to be passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is going to be hard because I also have a challenged developmentally delayed son. In fact, Dr. Fox, you probably don't remember me, but I was at one of your very first meetings. So I'm going to say a few things that I'd like you to just consider, because while Dr. Fox talks about it, my husband and I were part of the changes that occurred. We sued Dutchess County and New York State many times for our son's services. My son is the reason many programs exist today, including children going to regular nursery schools and receiving their services there versus in a rehab center. So yes, I'm aware of the fight. I have concerns because I work as an educator in a lower income community. And my concerns with bringing in lower income communities as such are, one, we do not have a very strong public transportation here in southern Dutchess County. Lower income families rely on public transportation. We don't have it. My son lives at home and goes to a day hab center. He does receive services from Abilities First. His program can't teach them how to use a bus because we don't have a bus that comes through East Fishkill. And while there are some of the developmentally delayed community that do drive, the bulk do not drive at all. That is one of my greatest concerns. When you start bringing in lower income families, we don't have a structure in place for them, and many of them are going to need to be able to go to Poughkeepsie to receive services, where all of our county offices are, and they're going to need to be able to get there and then come home. When my son has to go in, it means I have to take a day off from my husband and transport him. That is a concern. We don't have them in Hopewell. I work in the city of Newburgh. If one of my students has a crisis, there are centers in the city of Newburgh that they can go to. Transportation, my other concern is we have a fire and rescue department that is stretched thin. We're on a volunteer fire and rescue department. Gone are the days when they could be at IBM and their pagers went off and they could leave IBM and go care for it. One of my concerns, additionally, with bringing in the developmentally delayed community is they are more medically fragile. They may need a greater level of medical care. They may need more transportation. My other concern is that while I think it's great to have somebody on site part-time, I would be concerned that it wasn't somebody on site full-time. I'm also concerned with the number of parking places, because I can tell you, when we have a meeting at our house for something major with Matt, there's my car, there's my husband's car, there's the woman from Abilities First, there's a person from Matt's other program, and whoever else they may bring in. So I'm concerned about the parking. I also think the estimate for number of cars going in and out at peak hours is low. Have you ever tried, if you happen to be at Beverage Barn, trying to cross 82 to go back to Hopewell Village? Or if you happen to be at Joe's Dairy to maybe try to make the left to go to Old Hopewell Road during peak hours, it's not going to happen. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I think we need to sit back and maybe take a little bit more into consideration and look at some other issues concerning that. You know, you're talking about putting 68 units on 10 acres of land in a town that is primarily 1 acre zoning, and you're talking about tapping into water when we still have communities that lack clean water that are living on a Superfund site. You have roughly 225 families living in the Hopewell Precision Superfund site still waiting for their clean water. Just throwing that out there.
I'm sorry, you raised a number of points. I mean, I'm not sure where you ultimately come down.
I'm not sure where I ultimately come down myself, but I do think the points bear consideration.
All good points, but I wasn't sure at the end whether
I don't know where I am.
Modify the proposal.
I think it needs to be modified. I think it needs to be looked into, and I think if Abilities First truly wants to bring this community out here, because one of the reasons I took my son, never even let my child go to rehab or go to BOCES, because I wanted him educated and cared for within the community of East Fishkill, where his brother and sisters were. I wanted him with his family, with the people who cared about him. If anybody here ever went to St. Columba, they'd remember my son as this little kid in a stroller because his babysitter was a volunteer there. I mean, I've brought him all over town. People who know me know that. But my concern is that we need to look at other issues. We're not talking about an apartment in the city of Poughkeepsie where you have transportation. We're talking about taking one of these, putting it in Hopewell, where we don't have that. And we do have a volunteer rescue and fire department that is stretched thin.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I could have the applicant just come up for a moment, let's talk about a couple of these. It's just easier if we address them as we go. And Jeff, if it's all right, I will ask you to talk about a few of these things as well. With regard to the accessibility of public transportation, I know I've seen the loop bus, but does it come past this property or does not come past?
No, it doesn't. The loop bus right now goes as far as Palin Road. We have spoken to the county. We have worked with the county before in incorporating a bus stop in one of our veterans project. We did a supportive housing project for veterans, disabled and homeless veterans, and we were able to build a bus stop in. We've approached the county with this. They're receptive. I don't have an answer yet, but that's in play.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other public transportation that's available, or maybe it's through, does Abilities First have?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that our plan is, as always, in all of our programs and everything that we do, to provide the right kinds of supports and services to each person that actually meets their needs. So our plan is not to put people in these situations and leave them without the transportation and the other kinds of support that they need to actually survive and succeed. So each person that would be living in this setting would have an individualized, crafted plan and set of supports wrapped around them. And we would, when it's needed, bring supports to them, provide transportation that they need to get their needs met, whether it's shopping or getting to a doctor's appointment or something like that. So we see that as putting minimal strain on the additional infrastructure that's out there to handle those kinds of things. And we would have staff on site as much as they were needed to be on site. If that was 24 hours a day, we would do 24 hours a day. If the needs of the people living in that setting were demonstrated and they needed less than that, it would be less than that. And even if we pulled back and the needs increased again, we'd go backwards and we'd have staff on site 24 hours a day if we needed to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with regard to things like meetings or maybe multiple people needing to arrive at the site at the same time, what is a typical number of people that would be meeting with one of the residents here, and how many parking spots would that be?
Yeah, again, everything is very individualized, so we provide what's called community habilitation, and that's a service that could be, for one person, it could be 2 hours a week. For another person, it could be 15 hours a week. And it's based upon the person's needs. So if what one person needs is help getting to a medical appointment, they would show up when that person needs to go to a medical appointment. So it wouldn't be all at the same time, because everybody's needs are different. But I would also state that probably should be no different than any other resident in a setting like this having friends or family visit.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then with regard to the parking, I think, and Jeff, I'm trying to remember, did you land bank parking in this design? And can you just give us a quick update of how many parking spots you have per building, and then how many spots are land banked? And what land banked means, if that's not a term you've heard before, it means it's a grassy field today, but in the event that this community needed more parking spots, it's land set aside to be paved and turned into parking if it was needed.
Yeah, your code requires up to 2 parking spaces per unit. We have 68 workforce housing units plus a superintendent's total 69, requiring a total of 138 parking spaces. We have put together an assessment based on Mr. Carney's experience with similar developments and put together an estimate of residential use, visitor use, and Abilities First employees. And what we've provided is a total of 109 parking spaces, and therefore requested a provision to land bank 29 of them. Again, as you stated, we've laid them out in the plan, we've graded them out in the plan, we'll be catching the runoff from them, so that if any time we needed to implement them, we would. But based on Ken's vast experience, as well as my experience with many similar projects, we believe we have ample parking, and if we need to get into that in a little more detail with the board, we certainly will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Michelle, I know you reviewed the parking layout and the parking sufficiency. Are you comfortable with where the plan is right now as far as adequacy of the parking?
Yes, can everyone hear me? No.
Sorry about the mics, guys. Thanks.
Yes, I am. It is within the range of the ITE standards for this type of development. And that doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be exactly what the industry standards say, but with the fact that they've land bank spaces, if it's needed in the future, we can always ask that those spaces be converted.
Okay. Thank you. And then Brendan, I think the last comment was the traffic flow during the peak hours. And can you just give us an update on when the traffic counts were taken and what this, as
Yeah, I don't have all the information in front of me, Lori, because
Okay.
it wasn't my office that completed the traffic impact study.
Okay.
So, I mean, they did study the peak hours in the AM and PM. And I think before, if anyone was confused, I wasn't talking about the amount of traffic on Route 82. I was talking about the amount of traffic coming out of the site in the peak hour. Yes, there's a lot of traffic on 82, but, the guidance for this type of development is, it is basically a half a car per unit in the peak hours. That's what previous studies across the country have shown for a development like this, how much traffic they would produce.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Okay, then the next name on our list? Al?
Good evening. My name is Al Marata. I've lived in my home on Zerna Boulevard for over 40 years. My home, as the crow flies, is less than a half a mile from this site. And I'd like to say that I'm very much in favor of having this site. As far as water and sewer and traffic, I can say that if we can survive the 500 Toll Brothers homes on Fishkill Road, another 68 units is not going to make much of a difference.
Okay.
I travel Route 82 every day. I have a 32-year-old son who's developmentally disabled. He lives in a group home up in northern Dutchess County. He's doing very well there, but he's ready to move on to a more integrated setting. My wife and I are getting too old to meet his needs at home. He still considers himself a Hopewell Junction resident. He grew up here. Something like this would be perfect for him. My neighbor has a daughter who's not disabled, who can't afford to live in East Fishkill, even though she would like to. So this could be for something like her, too. So I vote that we support this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Peter?
Thank you. I'm opposed to this, and not for any reason, because I think the Abilities First is great. I'm a Marine veteran, so I go to the VA often, and I see disabled people regardless of the reason, and it's a great thing. I just believe that the location is wrong. The reason being, I have to point.
That's fine.
If you look at the left of the PDF, the first driveway is Oasis Beverage. Then the next driveway with the brown building is the Duchess Drive. Correct. The next building to the right up is my home, 665. Then there's my neighbor next to that, the next three driveways of my neighbors. Based on that we live there, the traffic is horrendous. I live directly across from Joe Mothers Road, and it's almost impossible at times to get out of the driveway or get in. So I'm not speaking because I don't experience it every day or my family doesn't experience it every day. There's also another issue. Off the PDF is Russo Drive, the development behind me. If you go up Lake Walton Road and you make a right, there's the next development. That backs up our property. We have foot traffic, kids that just walk through because it's easier than going around. We tell them it's not a public access, and like any kid, they're not going to listen. They just continue to go back and forth. So our concern is how much more foot traffic, once they figure it out, is this going to create? So it raises a question of why we don't want it. Also, I just believe with putting in the baseball area, the sports complex, and then putting this in listening to it earlier, with all the traffic on 52 that's going to be there when it's in full swing, the residents are going to try to avoid that traffic area to get to Fishkill and use 82. So if you have the complex in there and this, I don't know if anybody looked at what kind of traffic. This is really going to create a gridlock when people have to get around and they don't want to go on 52 because they don't want to deal with the traffic for the sports complex. And I don't know if anybody ever looked at that. I think that the housing project is a great idea, but I just think it's in a wrong location. Thanks. Yes.
I missed you on the point about the through traffic, the foot traffic. Where are they going from and to?
Actually, I never asked them.
Good answer.
I honestly never asked them. I think they just don't want to walk around and come up Lake Walton Road for wherever they're going. But a lot of times I'm like, where are these kids going? And behind my house, there are paths, and the kids just go through. They walk up my driveway.
Do they cross the road into this site, or do they go? Are they heading like into the village?
They go into town to use the facilities, and they walk on the road. And if you come down.
Okay, I'm sorry, ma'am. We'll have you come back up to the mic. We can't pick up the conversation from the audience.
She was saying they go to town. They go wherever they're going. They go home that way. I would do the same thing if I was a kid. Instead of walking all the way around, explaining that it's not a public access. They say, yeah. Kids. But we just don't want to have more of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Brendan, can I just have you talk about whether there's conflict between the hours and the operation of the sports dome and then this location on 82?
Well, what I can offer you is some of my knowledge of studying the corridors for other projects within the town. Route 82 has a daily traffic of probably in the 16 to 18,000 cars a day on Route 82 in this vicinity. When you compare that to Route 52, where the sports dome is, it's in the range of 10 to 11,000 cars a day. So there's a lot more cars in this vicinity of 82 than there is on 52. So 52 actually has, quite a bit of capacity before someone would look to divert from that area, just because there's already a lot more traffic here in this area of 82. So that's one thing to look at. Would there be times at the dome, when there's turnover and people might want to avoid that area? Sure. I mean, I can't deny that could conceivably happen, especially since these roads merge not that far to the east. So.
Okay. Thank you. Jeff, do you want to just come on back up for me for a second? With regard to the foot traffic, can you just give us maybe an overview of where you would expect the foot traffic to happen from this development? I think services would probably be east on 82 to get into town, but maybe across the street to the beverage place. I mean,
Yeah,
do you see us walking back into the residential area? Is there
Right, if I understand the gentleman correctly, the development up behind his house, back up in here, which comes off of Lake Walton Road, which is way down here, and comes back in. That development, those kids are cutting through his yard or his neighbor's yard to get to 82 to walk into Hopewell Junction Hamlet. I'm not sure that we would create a traffic pattern that would generate the opposite, where kids would want to walk through there. We would think, and we've talked to the board about the idea of maybe a bigger plan put forth by the DOT for sidewalks. We see our foot traffic, if any, coming from our facility heading in the same direction toward Hopewell Hamlet.
And then back from the hamlet back into
And back, of course, right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The next name on our list? Brian?
Hi. My name is Brian Karst. I've been a resident town of East Fishkill for 25 years, paid taxes here for 25 years, and I'm getting to the point in my life where I possibly might be selling my house within the next 5 to 7 years. As we've all seen recently with the housing bubble, everybody's house took a hit as far as their property value. If this proposal goes through, you're going to really put the double whammy on all of the residents in that area with respect to resale of their house. You're putting low-income housing, and in addition to that, even though it's not advertised as a group home setting, the connotation of a group home setting is going to be there. So my property values are going to plummet with respect to any resale value. I've heard workforce housing thrown around. I would say this to you without trying to be disrespectful. You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. It's low-income housing. However, it's portrayed here. I'm curious if this goes through, what the criteria will be. I've heard incomes discussed, but I want to know if there's going to be a lottery. In some cases, when there is low-income housing, a lottery is conducted, and I don't know if that's the case in this particular proposal, but that would tend probably to bring residents from outside the community into this community. Another concern I have is that if they don't achieve full occupancy and don't have enough people from within this community, are they then going to go outside this community to fill that void? That's a major concern and a major question that I have. And additionally, will these units, or could they potentially be filled with Section 8 housing? I've seen these projects, I've seen it happen before, where it starts out, it's affordable income housing, and then they can't achieve occupancy. They either go out of the area or they go to Section 8. So I certainly have a concern about that. I'm all for the working man being able to afford a place to live and raise their families. But, too many times we've seen these things go awry. And I have a very big concern about that. I heard that the residents will be vetted and there will be background criminal checks done. My question is that going to be done by a law enforcement agency? Is that going to be done by a private company? And what vehicle are they going to use to do that? Because that's very important, because you have living around you, well, if you went on the New York State Sex Offender Registry, you would see that there are many sex offenders living in Dutchess County and, in fact, living in this town. Maybe a sex offender would not be admitted to one of these locations, but could be a relative, family member, and they could gain access to living there based on that. I would like to know what the ongoing steps that are going to be taken to ensure that something like that doesn't happen. I heard people talking about traffic study. As I said, I've lived over there for 25 years, and I would agree with the resident who had said that you can't make a left out of Oasis Beverage. I would agree with that, and I would also submit to you that it's going to be near impossible making a left out of Joe's Mother's Road. So I see that as a very hazardous situation. You may see an increase in traffic accidents, and hopefully, knock wood, hopefully it doesn't happen, but a fatality at that location, because cars go along at a pretty good clip on Route 82. So I would be concerned about that. And with respect to the traffic studies, I don't agree with those figures, and I would asked that that be made available to the public so that we could review that and see what determinations and what findings were actually made. With respect to emergency services, any multi-family development is going to require increased services, and I'm talking police, fire, EMS. Who's going to bear that cost? That's my question. Ultimately, it's the taxpayer. The taxpayer is going to bear the cost of the additional police that need to be hired, upgrades in equipment, and whatever support fire and EMS need. I mean, I live in a house, as it was stated before, it's 1 acre zoning, and you know, I've had to pay taxes based on that all these years, and I bought specifically up here because it was 1 acre zoning and it afforded me a nice neighborhood setting. And now, you know, there's a proposal before you to put a multi-existence dwelling in there with not just income housing, but there's several usages being considered here. I really think it'll change the face of our area of the community. I'm vehemently against it, and I would implore the planning board to really carefully consider this before you give any kind of green light to this project. I also heard they talked about foot traffic, and it was stated that the foot traffic would go across Route 82, would cross where Palin Road intersects. I don't know if everybody here lives in town. If you've ever been there, it's near impossible to cross there. There's no crosswalk. It's very dangerous. As you get down Route 82 to walk into town, the road narrows near the creek. It's very dangerous. There's no sidewalks. You know, I'd want to know what provisions are going to be made for the safety of the pedestrians, and ancillary to that, are any changes going to be made in that intersection? Is there going to be a crosswalk, and would that crosswalk, is that further going to impede traffic at a very busy intersection? So I think there's a lot of questions that have to be asked and answered before this is given due consideration. I don't think those questions have been answered yet, and I would hope that the board would you know, take those into consideration and evaluate them on their own merit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir. Sir, just so you know, all of our traffic study information, in fact, all of the information about this application is available through the planning office. And do we have copies anywhere else online? But through the planning office, so you can come in through the planning office here. Yep. Ken, can I have you come on up if that's all right? We heard some concern, and if we don't have information on this, that's okay, but maybe it's something we can look at. Is there any study or any information regarding multifamily projects and the impact to surrounding real estate value that you know of?
There is a national, there was a report nationally, not locally, and I don't have a copy. I'll get you a copy.
Okay.
And the report indicated it contradicts what the previous speaker just put forward. In addition, the Dutchess County Department of Planning with Dutchess County Planning Federation issued a report back in 2012 regarding impacts of affordable housing. They went back in and looked at a couple of developments, what was said before and what actually occurred afterwards. I can get you a copy of that report.
I'd like to have that in the planning office with the application. That would be great.
All right, well, we will do that. It looked at numerous issues. One of the issues it looked at was impact on the schools. It looked at where the sources of income of the various tenants came from, what the impacts were, again, you know, on the schools, what was said by the developer, what was said by the community, and what the actual you know, numbers were.
Okay.
Okay?
That
I can get you.
Just to follow up on that point, is what was the rationale for it not impacting the property values? Because, I mean, it would seem
Yeah, I
that-
understand.
I'm not saying either
understand.
way, but if you put something very different in the middle of all those houses, how does that not roll over and change? What was the rationale?
I don't know. I don't know. I brushed through the report probably 2 or 3 years ago, but I will get you a copy of it. I'm not sure if the Dutchess County report that the Dutchess County Department of Planning did actually talks to that subject or not. It's a concern that's come up. I believe that some of our, I've had this issue come up. I remember down in Yorktown, I did one of my first developments down there on East Main Street back in 2000, and the residents and the community, they were convinced. They were convinced that I was going to ruin the neighborhood. They were outside carrying signs saying, stop this ghetto. And after everything was said and done, there was a big movement against me. And the person who actually started the movement, the day I broke ground, stopped traffic, got out, ran over to me and said, I have to speak to you. I said, I really don't want to speak to you. She says, no, I have to speak to you. I need an apartment for a family member. So I think some of these, I've dealt with this over a period of time. I do think other comments have been made regarding some of our developments. Our developments, I believe for most time, look better than market rate developments. I know for a fact down what we're building down in Somers, there's the next town over has market rate developments that don't look as nice as ours. A lot of people did not realize that it was affordable housing. We build our own development. We're not at the mercy of a contractor. I used to be. That's why I learned this business of construction. Now my son is with me, and he heads it up. But
Okay.
that's what I can tell you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'd love to see the report, because it's,
I think it's important to have
Yeah.
the information that you have, whether it makes the case or doesn't make a case, one way or another. I think we'd like to have that information.
And what I'll do, I have the link. I have 2 links, and I'll email them over tomorrow. There's 2 separate reports from Dutchess County. One is the truth about, either the truth or dispelling myths about affordable housing, and the other one talked about affordable housing and impact on school districts. And they were both completed by Dutchess County Planning in conjunction with Dutchess County Planning Federation in the last
Okay. And then
2
if you
years.
have the national article as well,
That,
I'd like to have
yeah,
that as well.
that I'm going to search for, yes.
Talk to us a little bit about how you'll go about renting the project, and then what the vetting process is for residents.
Sure. Let's talk about a lottery. Chances are there is going to be a lottery. There's going to be more applicants than there are apartments. The last, we're renting up a development right now, and we have 500 applications out right now, for 75 units. People apply from all over. But what we concentrate on is not who applies, but who actually gets through the criteria, the selection criteria, and who's actually awarded or picked for tenancy. And the process starts this way. If there are more applications than there are apartments, we have a lottery, because we don't do first come, first serve. Somebody gets a lottery number, and we process their application according to their lottery number, and then also according to how many bedrooms. In other words, if somebody is in a lottery for a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, it's different. But we process their applications according to their lottery number. And then we just do the same exact process. We do criminal background checks. We use a company called Pre-Hire, which does national, Homeland Security, county, state, criminal background. We do credit scores to see if they to see what their credit actually is, and then we inquire on their prior landlord history. We get that information. Sometimes it stops right there. We send a letter to some people and say, you're not qualified. You're disqualified due to criminal background, you're disqualified due to credit, you're disqualified due to poor prior landlord history.
What about the income levels?
The income levels as well.
Okay.
If somebody is putting on an application that, A, you have too little income and you can't afford the apartment, or they make too much money, we'll also notify them as well and say you don't qualify for the apartment.
Are you validating that with a tax return, or how are you validating income? I guess that's what I'm asking.
The people are representing to us. If somebody's over income and they're representing to us that they're over income, we're going to take them at their word and say, you know, if somebody, for example, on the townhomes comes in and makes, you know, over the $80,000 a year, they're over income. And
What I'm saying is, let's say they know they're making $200,000 a year and they're telling you they're making $60,000 a year. How are you?
Okay. All right. At that point, we bring them in. Once I'm talking about getting by the first step, who do we bring in for an interview? In order to get in for an interview, we do the background checks, the credit checks, and prior landlord history.
Okay.
All right. And then we look at somebody, and all of a sudden, the number of applicants go like this. Okay? And then we pull them in for a personal interview. And when they come in for that personal interview, they have to bring with them, they have to document their income. They have to document their income, they have to document their assets, and so forth and so on. And with that, we also ask for a tax return. But a tax return is not what we rely on. What we rely on is third-party verifications. Okay. We send out verification to where they work, where they bank, and so forth. People have bank accounts, and we take part. Let's say somebody has $50,000 in the bank, $100,000 in the bank. We take whatever their assets are, and we times it by 2% and add that to their income. So if somebody has $50,000 in the bank, what's 2% of that? $1,000. So you add $1,000 to their income, and then we check their income through a third-party verification that we would send to their employers and so forth. So it's a multi-step process. And then at the interviews, we ask the hard questions. We tell them what's expected, and numerous times there's second interviews. When we get involved in the interviews, either myself or my son is present, and you know, we ask the hard questions, and the tenants know what to expect. And
Are you vetting all adults living in the unit? Are all adults required to be on the lease? So it's not a matter of if I'm living, I can have someone living with me.
That's right. We will, numerous times, we will bring in, let's say for the first interview, we will bring in the head of household, okay? And then somebody will say, well, you know, I have a child, or so forth and so on. Then there will be a second interview will be arranged where everybody who is going to occupy that apartment, we want to meet.
Okay.
It's true.
Okay. And as far as vetting all occupants, is that all adult occupants, is that common, or are you primarily vetting the person signing the lease?
No. Everybody is being vetted. Even the students are being vetted. The questions are asked and so forth. We want to know where everybody goes to school, what do you do, what don't you do, and so forth and so on. What we also find, too, is if somebody's not going to fit in with the program, they really know that what their lifestyle is not going to work. And a lot of times they don't come back for the second interview. That's just that's our experience.
Okay. The question was raised regarding Section 8 housing.
Mm-hmm. Section 8 housing is, for a development such as this, we can seek funding for Section 8 housing. That's not what we're doing. We're seeking funding under the tax credit program, which ties the development to people who make a certain income, okay? Somebody who has a Section 8 voucher, they can apply anywhere. They can apply anywhere. They can open up the Penny Saver, they can open up the Poughkeepsie Journal, and they can apply to a house in East Fishkill, they can apply to an apartment. Somebody can apply, but again, you're going to go through the same vetting process, the same exact vetting process. We are not going for Section 8 funding here. We're not. This is a tax credit development which is tied to income. The Section 8 connotation has a negative connotation, and numerous times it's used for that reason, to project a negative connotation. But somebody with Section 8 can apply anywhere. A couple comments that were made about project going awry. We know of projects that go awry because we bought numerous projects that have gone awry. When we started in this business, we bought numerous properties that were distressed due mainly to management. We bought one in the Hudson Valley. There was a 26-unit garden apartment complex that an out-of-state owner totally lost control of it. By the time we took over, there were 5 people living there, and they just ruined it. They absolutely ruined it. And we went in, this is, 1997, and we went in and we renovated the apartments. We gave them a good product, kitchens, baths, and so forth and so on. And we went in with our management style, and we still own it today. It's up in the town of Catskill. The town of Catskill, you know, has problems, has issues, and so forth and so on. But we bought it in 1997. We still own it. We just paid the mortgage off on it, and we do pretty well. When I started my career, I started in Beacon. Now, Beacon at the time was a city that went awry, if you recall, and the city was overrun at the time. They said that you know, the buildings had deteriorated to a point that the only apartments you could rent were to the unhousable. And we went in there. We worked with the city, former Mayor Claire Lou Gould, and we accessed some funds, and we were able to produce high-quality product with affordable stipulations for 20 years. That 20 years has just burned off. We did it in 1994. This is our 20th year. We have not been associated with developments that go awry. I respect the comments. I respect the commentator, and I understand where it's coming from. I know how they can go awry. I've seen them go awry, and like I said, we have stepped in when they have gone awry. And the last thing I'll say is this: I've never been in a situation when you can't fill apartments. The market is very, very strong for what we're proposing here. The market is tremendous, tremendous. We will have tremendous demand for these apartments. I believe we're going to have a tremendous demand from day one, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and 15 years from now. And so even if we didn't, back to my Catskill development, that was 26 units. I bought that in June of 1997. I didn't rent my last unit until July of 1998. It took me 7 months. It took me 7 months because I had a model, I had a management policy, and I stuck with it. And we're still there now. We're still there, and we're proud of it. So, you know, when we started this business, it was myself and my wife, and now my boys are in it. And I personally managed every property. Management is the toughest part. You develop, you construct, and you manage. And management is the toughest part. It really is. It's like, but it's the most important. And that's what we do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, I don't think we've talked before about a pedestrian crossing across Palin Road. So I don't know if it's appropriate to try to do that across Palin Road or to go to the other side of the road and cross
No, we haven't
where
had that
pedestrians would go.
discussion. Yeah, it's not something that's being considered at this point.
Okay. And then, Michelle, I know we had information in the EAF regarding emergency services. Is there anything that specific that was called out? I know the school district impact was significantly less, but I don't recall looking at specifically at emergency services right now.
Just at the emergency services providers were contacted and said that they could meet the demand of the.
So fire, rescue, and police
Correct.
said they could meet the demand of the development?
Correct.
Okay.
And they also met with the fire advisory board and had them review the site and make comments, and I think they've addressed some of the comments that were made.
Okay, thank you. Who's next on our list? Michael Atwell?
Good evening, Noy. My name is Michael Atwell, and I don't know how often you and the board work this late, but thank you for everything you do to support our community. I agree with what a number of people have said, and we need housing like this. I've lived in 15 different apartment complexes since 1985 as I've moved across country with different jobs. And when I moved to this community 10 years ago, I lived first in Chelsea Cove. And at that point in time, I was paying $1,200 a month for rent, so very similar to what they're proposing here. So I am not against this proposition, it's just the wrong location. You can't take 9+ acres of land on this stretch of road and drop 68 families when we know we already have the amount of challenges on this stretch. I know that we were just mentioning putting in a crosswalk on Palin. We already know that Palin-Fishkill Road intersection isn't the right kind of intersection there, and we've got challenges already to fix that because of the railroad in place. So we haven't got a good fix to something that's existing already, and now we're going to be putting in 68 families where we're being told it would be 34 cars added on. Then that's an awful lot of people walking. And I'm assuming if we've got that many working people walking, they're going to be looking for jobs at things like A&P in the center of town, and that would be adding an awful lot of foot traffic going in that direction, where that intersection's already extremely dangerous. And when we're talking about the dangers of the road, when you're putting 68 families in, that's an awful lot of kids. And on top of all of the traffic, on top of the driving school buses and trucks going in across the street, and all the people pulling in and out of the Oasis, you're going to have children that are going to run across to the beverage barn to get sodas and drinks, because it is right there. And we're going to add that on top of an already bad traffic situation. Plus, you're going to have the families walking down to Joe's, and nobody's mentioned putting in a sidewalk going in that direction, but it would really need to run from Joe's all the way to the center of town if it's going to make that roadway safe, and it still doesn't address the Palin Road situation. And to say it's only going to be 34 cars during rush hour, that can't be right. And to be adding however many cars it is to a stretch of road that is already as bad as it is, we can't just go, oh, it's probably going to be 34 cars and not be that bad. And also to say that it's not going to affect a housing price. Peter lives right across the street from it.
I don't think anybody said that, just to be
Oh,
clear.
I thought he said that there was a report out that stated that.
It was a national study. It was an article that
Okay.
he's going to provide to the planning board. I don't
Okay.
think anybody here said that was.
No, okay, no, sorry, and I'm not arguing, I'm sorry if I sound like I'm coming across argumentative to you, not my plan at all.
No, I just didn't
apologize.
want you to think that the planning board said that, because we
Okay.
did not say that.
So my biggest concern is the location. And I've lived in apartment complexes like this, and we need them. But we can't afford to put it somewhere where, I mean, that used to be a single-family home, and it is a community where apparently it was zoned 1 home per acre, and somehow that got passed to change. And I'm not sure how that got passed to change, but to say we're going to drop in 70 families now, not on that stretch of road.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brendan, can I just have you clarify what the 34 cars mean, and whether or not we'd expect all residents to have cars? Because I don't think the 34 cars at peak hour meant that half the people would be walking. Is that correct?
No, it means there's going to be a distribution of traffic. And, when they've studied apartment complexes of, this size and of this nature, and these are based on a number of studies, this is what they find. These studies produce what the trip generation would be.
So some people may leave a half an hour before the peak hour, some a half an hour after. But the likelihood is that everybody has a car if you have an apartment here, for the most part.
But actually, there's some theory that in an apartment complex, not everyone would have a car. Because So it's different. Like I said, just as in a comparison, like a single-family house is the trip generation in the peak hour is 1 car. For an apartment complex, it's half a car. But at a single-family residence, in most cases, you would presume there's more than 1 car at a household. But the studies show that in the peak hour, you're really only seeing 1 car from that residence. And what they show from apartment complexes is that in the peak hour, you'll see a trip generation of a half a car per unit.
Can you talk a little bit about who will see the traffic impact from that peak hour? Whether it's the traffic on 82, whether it's the residents on the other side of the road, or it's the residents within this.
The biggest impact is going to be. Okay.
Go ahead, Brendan. I'm sorry.
The biggest impact is going to be from the people that actually live in the complex, just like the people that live across the street or in this vicinity where they have difficulty getting out of the businesses or out of their driveways. The people that live in here, and it's going to be the left turn, that's going to be the most difficult for them. One of the things this applicant did to change the configuration a little bit was to put in, before it was just a single lane exit, now it's a left and a right turn exit, so that the people going right can freely get out if someone is there waiting to make a safe left turn. They also did position the driveway in an area where there was adequate sight distance on 82 in both directions, so that someone can make a safe maneuver out of that driveway. But it's certainly it's not going to be it wouldn't be uncommon for someone to have to wait a couple of minutes or more to be able to make a safe exit out of that facility. Right.
Left.
But once that amount of cars gets onto 82, the impact to everyone else is I'm not going to call it negligible, but it's smaller and less significant than the person that actually had to go out and take that left, because you're adding, you already have in the peak hour here, you probably have close to 2,000 cars in that peak hour on 82. So adding 10 cars in each direction isn't going to be substantial. Where the impact to the person across the street, they're not going to see much of an impact in terms of their delay if another car happen to be leaving when they're leaving.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, Lauren, there was one part that I missed.
Come on up. That's fine.
And I do apologize.
No,
but
that's
going,
quite all right.
Going back to cars, when we started off, I believe that I heard somebody mention that for this type of a complex, we should plan for 2 spaces per unit, which
Right.
put it at 138 spaces. I believe I heard them say that we have 109 spaces with 29
Land bank.
land banked, so on grass if we need it.
Right.
So
Well, they would
not-
have to be paved at the point where we need them. It's
Okay.
not that you park on the grass, they have to pave it.
But it just sounds like we're already starting without the minimum number, and that doesn't account for having guests, so there doesn't appear to be any guest parking at all.
I
And I
believe the
have
applicant
company.
mentioned that based on his experience, he thought the 108 that they've created would be sufficient, but in case it's not, they have land banked the additional 29 to get you to the
To the
137.
minimum, but without any guest or company spaces.
Well,
When the code
but
says-
I'm sorry, to be clear, the minimum includes the expectation that there are guests and other spaces. So not every single unit will have 2 cars.
The
Some
code
will
has
only
a
have
certain-
1, so
the
they
code has a
assume
certain
that they're...
schedule of uses, and for use of residential use, it factors in guest parking by giving you how many units, how many spaces per unit. That's factored in.
And again, I know a lot of this is technical. We do have all of the studies and information in the planning office if someone wants to take a look at them, and we'll adjourn the meeting tonight. So if you have additional questions from looking at information, we're happy to entertain them. Who's the next name? Lisa?
Hi, my name is Lisa Dwyer. I just can't ignore the lack of information about the number of school-aged children. 68 units, obviously there's going to be kids involved. And an outside developer that maybe isn't familiar with Wappinger Central School District may not know kind of the implications of adding kids into this district. Technically, this district, because it's so large, is going to say, yes, we can accommodate the kids, no problem. But there's a direct impact on our community if the schools that are here in East Fishkill are overcrowded, which they already are. If there is no room for more students in Gayhead, Fishkill Plains, Van Wyck, and John Jay, what the school district proposed just 2 years ago, and they have a committee looking into this again right now, is to take East Fishkill students and bus them away from our community and place them in schools in other parts of the district. Do you want our children going away to school? I want our kids to go to school in our community with kids that they play ball with, are in scout troops with, dance with, pray with, and walk in parades with, like this past weekend. Our children are our future, and if you're saying that their well-being doesn't matter, what are we saying about our community? I'd also like to mention, talk about taxes. There's a lot of tax relief talk. From what I understand, and I don't know if this is part of the plan, is that the developer could negotiate a pilot agreement which would give tax relief to their business, but not the taxpayers here in the district. If you add kids to the schools with no money to the school district, our taxes go up. Just last month, the Wappinger School District announced that due to declining assessments across the district, our school tax rate will actually go up 3.68% instead of 2.26%, which we voted on last May. So obviously, again, if you add kids to the school and no money, our taxes are going to go up. A few questions that I had that came up in listening to the discussion tonight. Regarding the Abilities First families, I was wondering, are those adults that are in need of services, or are those families with children that need services? Another question I have about traffic is what exactly is peak hours? Because obviously with school buses running around, I don't know what is defined by peak hours. And one last comment. There was a reference to possible busing, the loop bus coming in and maybe working with the county to get a bus stop at, I guess, the location. But that doesn't solve, you can go pick them up, but then the people would want to go somewhere. And if there isn't that loop bus service where they need to go in this local community, there's kind of no point in having a bus stop there. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. Michelle, just let's talk for a minute about the schools, if we could. I know the original application was looking at a potential impact to our school district of 45 children based on the 68 units. And when we look at the school impact, it's based upon the number of bedrooms within each unit. So it's not just that there were 68 units, it was the number of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. So my understanding, and you're going to keep me honest here if I say this wrong, but because the number of 3-bedroom units has been significantly reduced with this application, the number of school children is projected to be, is it 30?
Well, it's projected to be 21 new students with a worst-case scenario of 30 new students.
So considered,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather go worst case. Was 45 the worst case for the original applicant? The previous
Actually, the
applicant,
45 was the number of students that the Homestead School analysis determined could be accommodated by the Wappinger Central School District.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you lost that up. Accommodated, meaning?
I think I'm guessing they looked at capacity of what could be, where there was capacity in the schools that would be receiving the children, and I guess they showed a number of 45 students.
Okay.
I'm struggling with that.
We may need to relook at just what the school information is, because I think, I don't know if there's been something more recent.
There is.
Okay.
In March of 2014, a report, a facility utilization study was completed by the Leadership for Educational Achievement Foundation. They were charged by the Wappinger Central School District to take a look at the entire district and to take a look at the various schools and primarily the dynamic with the elementary schools. So what the findings and conclusions showed, the issue that was just raised regarding Gayhead Elementary School, during the previous public hearing back in 2012 on the previous application, the issue was raised. So we took a look at Gayhead Elementary School. Gayhead Elementary School peaked, the enrollment peaked in 2010. It was 1,048 students. At the time of the previous application, 2012, that enrollment had decreased down to 1,003. Currently, the enrollment at Gayhead is 948 students. The projections for school year 2016-2017, which would be the first year this development would be placed in service, the enrollment continues to drop down to 924. Now, previously, when the enrollment peaked, Gayhead was over capacity. They added 4 modular classrooms. The modular classrooms are still there. They're not utilized anymore as classrooms. They're utilized as office and storage and so forth. So from the peak of 1,048, by the time this development is in, the Gayhead Elementary population has decreased by 124 students. So the dynamic that is going on with the elementary schools, and there is, the report is very comprehensive. It talks about, moving forward. We all understand how school districts are strained right now.
Is it looking at some of the new developments like Hopewell Glen?
I'm sorry?
Is that still the capacity, though, at night?
Gayhead,
Well, Gayhead, when it was, what was it, 1,000 what?
yeah,
1,048 was over capacity.
It was
What
over
is
capacity.
I mean, what is, are we still over capacity?
no,
at
we're not over
924?
capacity. We're at or near capacity today. Today. As of March of 2014, Gayhead was at or near capacity. So currently we're at 948. That will be dropping, and then every year it drops down to 924 in 2016, and then the following year 895 and 881. It continues. I'm sorry?
How do they know that?
Well, we know what it is currently.
No, I understand currently, but how do they
I'm
know
sorry,
it's
folks,
gonna
we're hearing a
drop?
lot of discussion in the
All right,
audience. The
I'll
mics
show
are
you.
picking it up. I
The-
just need folks in the audience
This
to
is-
please,
Did they
Jason,
noted-
just a second.
Go ahead.
Please, we hear your conversation. It actually picks up on the
I
mics
don't.
and starts to echo.
I don't
I'm not
profess.
saying you do.
I understand. I don't profess to be an expert in this.
But did they know that you're going to add 30 students to it? I mean, they don't.
That's just, no, I'm talking about the elementary school issue that was raised in 2012, and I'm addressing that particular issue. I think the issue that came up was if the students from this development go to Gayhead, are other students going to be displaced? Are they going to be displaced and move to another elementary school? And the numbers, based upon the numbers in this report, it doesn't indicate that. There is a continued, what they looked at, of course, globally with the Wappinger Central School District, they looked at from 2002 to 2012 at the live births. The live births, which is the barometer or the foundation of projections, is down 14.5, and all projections, are on the downward, are on the decline, as numerous neighboring school districts are. So, but this report really talked about what elementary schools and what other schools may be consolidated and so forth. And I'm not embracing any of these conclusions, but I thought that the numbers may be helpful. I'll leave this with Pam, okay?
That's the copy of the report?
Yeah.
And then it's done
Yeah.
for the Wappinger Central School
Yeah,
District?
it was actually at their March meeting.
Okay.
They had a meeting in March, and it was actually talked about then.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thanks.
Can you also, I'm sorry, guys, we're, first, I guess, can you also just address the pilot program for us? And I'll have you come back up in a moment. We'll just go through your initial questions.
I have in previous developments, let me start by adding, we do not have a pilot in place for this development
Are you
currently.
intending to have one?
I'm not sure, and I'll tell you why. Our other developments, what we do is we will look at what the estimated taxes are going to be, and we will approach the town and say, in order to keep the rents where we need to keep them, can we enter into some type of predetermined agreement? That's a conversation that still has to happen, if it happens at all.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, thank you. And then Jeff, if you don't mind, let's just share with us the Abilities First residents that you would expect for this project. whether it's
Yeah,
family.
just, no, it should be a quick answer. The Abilities First residents will be adults, and they will, it would be unlikely, highly unlikely, that any of them would be living here with children. They'll be living in one unit or one bedroom or two-bedroom apartments. The adults living in a two-bedroom apartment would most likely be living with another adult that they've chosen to live with as a friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then Brendan, can you just give us what the peak hours were, AM and PM?
Yeah, I don't have the study in front of me, so I'm not sure of the actual peak hour that was used for the study, but, you know, peak hour in general for the AM, it's between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. in the afternoon, between 4 and 6 p.m. But when they count the traffic for a particular traffic study, they'll make sure that they do the analysis on the hour that has the most amount of traffic.
So they do the counts for a wide range of hours and then figure out which one had the highest count? Is
They
that-
usually do the counts between those hours of 7 to 9 or 4 to 6, unless there's something else that indicates they should expand them. And sometimes they do midday counts also.
Okay.
And then out of that range, they pick the peak hour. And that's the analysis is the worst case scenario analysis.
Okay, thank you, Brendan.
Yep.
I'd just like to speak to the leaf study that the gentleman brought up.
Okay.
I was actually on the facilities committee for the district that used that, that leaf study was part of our research
Okay.
to look at the district. And although, yes, across the district, enrollment is declining, and I know this is kind of difficult with Wappinger Schools because it includes 5 townships. So it's not like there's this tight bond of the school and the town. But what is happening is there is massive overcrowding in Fishkill Elementary. There are modulars over there. There are modulars at Van Wyck that are being used by students. And so although on paper there may be what looks like an opening at Gayhead, first of all, the average class size at Gayhead is about 28, which is bordering on the teacher contract limit. Some classes actually can go up to 32 because they are inclusion classes, 32, 33 students. And what the district is looking at, and the reason why I was suggesting that, because I'm on the committee now as well, that students from East Fishkill may be moved out of East Fishkill to go to school is because enrollment in the north half of the district is declining a little more. We're trying to make some shifts in using space better across the district, in lowering class size, which is better for all students. So, there's a lot going into that investigation. So it's not as simple as there's room at Gayhead, so we're good.
So and I guess I don't want to, I keep picturing the phrase redistricting, but I know that's like a political thing.
Exactly, yeah.
But is it sort of like that, where you just try to shift the borders for where the bus, which
That's
schools
some of the
you use?
discussion that's happening. Right now, the schools, if you're familiar with the district at all, but the 4 kind of schools in the south, as it's referred to, Gayhead, Fishkill Plains, Brinkerhoff, and Fishkill Elementary, feed into Van Wyck, which feeds into John Jay. The northern schools, Kinry, Vassar, see if I get them all, Kinry, Vassar, Oak Grove, Sheaf, Myers, and Evans feed into Wappingers Junior and RCK. Those are called feeder patterns. So there's kind of like a north-south split. For the most part, these district zoning lines for the elementary schools are cognizant of town lines for the most part. But what's happening now, because there's some more space in the north, there is discussion, and who knows what's going to happen with the school board, but there's discussion of shifting kids north because there's not enough room down here and there's room up here. So you're potentially, by adding more kids down here, you're adding even more weight in an already heavily populated area of the district, and potentially kids, like 2 years ago, they had suggested kids on Robinson Lane be sent up to Vassar Road in the town of Poughkeepsie to go to elementary school.
Okay.
And so there's those kinds of ideas being thrown around. So
Okay.
that's kind of, I know it's a bigger conversation because of the
Well, I
district
think
is so big.
if we get the copy of the study and we can have a copy of it with this application, it'll help us. We'll take a look at it.
And I
and
could
it'll
send
help
you
us.
some of the other
If you want to,
information.
you can contact our planning office. Anything you want to provide to us, we'd appreciate. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next name on our list? I can't hear you.
out who he was.
Hi, good evening. Ed Slowshower. I've been an East Fishkill resident for 11 years. A lot of questions that I had kind of were answered during the presentation, and from the members of the community brought some things up and were answered by the applicant. But I just want to expand on this report. Just so you know, that report done by Dr. Martin was rejected by the community. That report was basically
I apologize.
done.
Which report are you referring to?
The report that the gentleman is giving you a copy of.
Is this the school district report or
That's
one
correct.
of the other?
That's done by Dr. Martin.
Okay.
That report was rejected by the community, and if you were aware, that was a report that kind of ends to justify the means of looking to close Vassar in order to move the school district headquarters into that facility and then redistrict. That was rejected. The board ended up rejecting that proposal based on information that the report was lacking that the public supplied. There, I believe, I think it was 200 homes, 250 homes, not exactly sure, but part of Arlington, residents of Arlington in the back actually come to Wappingers. Those homes and the students were missing from that report, as well as a lot of other information. So I'd be very careful with the information you pull out of that report, because a lot of it was flawed. And the public brought it to the attention of the board and the community, and they ended up not closing Vassar, and obviously some other arrangements were made. But as Lisa just stated, as she's on the committee, the District Advisory Committee was reestablished for this new year to look at redistricting and K through 6 grade configuration. So there's a lot going on within the district. So if he's giving you information from March of 2014, an enormous amount of things have changed over the course of time since then till now. And I don't know if they've had any conversations with the school board or the district offices about what they're doing. 30 students, as we mentioned, there is some overcrowding, okay? But the other thing, I'm not sure whether they've even brought this up, is bus transportation. Have they spoken with the district about access to the complex? Can a school bus, is the roads big enough based on the configuration of the buildings and the roads for the buses to get in and get out? They need to obviously have a conversation with the school district. Who's responsible for plowing? How are the buses going to get access in there? If the buses can't get in there, how are they picking up the kids? So I think some more information needs to be found out from their standpoint with the school district.
I know with the original plan, and Jeff, I guess, Jeff C., is there still a bus stop at the entrance? So the intent would be for the children within the complex to walk to the entrance road, and there'd be a bus station
okay.
there.
Listen, that would not sit well, I think, with any parent. I mean, I'm on a lane. I've got 14 kids at my daughter's bus stop in the morning, and we still have cars whipping on a private lane around. I can only imagine having 30 kids, 25 kids, 10 kids, depending elementary school, whatever the breakout is, their elementary middle school or high school are standing on a main road waiting for a bus.
I just wanted you to know that's what is currently proposed.
Okay, well, I could not support anything like that. That makes no sense to me, that you're going to have kids standing there and parents are going to have to be there. So you could have 30 or 40 people between children and parents standing there waiting for buses. That's a safety.
Lori,
that's a safety hazard.
Lori, I will add that we did evaluate the site to make sure that a bus could get into the facility and be able to turn around and get out of the facility. My understanding at the time was that the district wouldn't actually allow the bus to come into into the complex, but we did make sure that the complex.
Well, I'm just saying, Toll Brothers has made arrangements for different things. So again, that's obviously something to be worked out between the developer and the school district. But if kids are on the main road, that's not a good thing. That's safety. The other thing with transportation costs, whether I guess it would change if they're going in or if they're being picked up, whether that's an extra stop, whether that's increased bus runs, okay, which could be an increased cost to the district, which in turn is an increased cost to the taxpayers. So I think that, in terms of pickup for the children, wherever that might be, that needs to be discussed with the school board, and I think you need to get some more information on that as well. Getting back to the school board, again, not sure how much conversation they've had with the school board, but currently the school board budget's about $212 million. The school district's $200 million in debt between short and long-term debt obligations. I know it was mentioned that there is no tax abatement currently, but what concerns me is there enough cash flow in order for them to pay the school tax bill? Okay, if he's saying it may take time to rent out, are we collecting enough money, or is he collecting enough rent? Is he going to be able to cover his debt service and pay the school tax and town tax as well? Okay, that's something that I think should be addressed. And what is the estimated tax? You should have some idea, because you had to supply CPC with numbers on your income and expense statement for debt service purposes. So there has to be some number out there as to what school tax and property taxes are, and we should be able to get some idea what the estimated taxes are.
There may be, I just know that's not the purview of the planning board with regard to that. I'm not.
All right. My concerns is the school district, because I just got my school tax bill, and I just got another 3.5% increase, okay, and I think so did everybody else. So if we're adding students, okay, and I have to, again, need to make sure taxes are being paid, okay. The school district is, I believe, about $15,000 per student. That's 30 students. Add that plus all, and again, if some of the students, maybe special needs, they may need extra services. That's $30,000, $50,000, as high as $100,000 per student. Okay, so if taxes aren't being paid in terms of school tax from the property tax and everything else that's being collected, that's an extra burden on the existing taxpayers. Okay, our seniors, our veterans, okay, struggling families within the district, okay, cannot afford any more taxes. So those are things that have to be considered. Those numbers should be looked at. If I get a little clarification, Abilities First is a great organization. I'm very involved with the chamber. I'm very familiar with Abilities First, and they're just a great organization. But could we just get some clarification? Is this complex an Abilities First complex, or is it a complex for workforce affordable housing? It was mentioned earlier in gentleman's presentation that employees of Abilities First would actually qualify. So are we looking at them to be applicants? If that's the case, are we going to have special needs adults that are living there, and we're going to have Abilities First workers there too? Are they there to take care of these people? What is the relationship there? Is that part of the arrangement? I don't know. Okay, I'd like some clarification on that, if that's possible. We talked about a potential lottery for residents. If this complex is being built in the town of East Fishkill, residents of the town of East Fishkill, in my opinion, should have the first right to submit an application and take advantage of affordable housing. If he's telling me we're going to get so many applications, then he should easily, within the residents of East Fishkill, be able to rent out his units. And if by chance he doesn't get enough applicants of residents of East Fishkill and he needs to go outside, well, I guess that's an option too. But if you're building this complex in the town of East Fishkill, as far as I'm concerned, this should be an East Fishkill property for East Fishkill residents. And, we're looking at doing senior living down the road, hopefully. That's for senior citizens within this district because we don't have it. So I think that should be clarified if that's okay. He also mentioned renting out, because we're part of the facility, will be for Abilities First residents moving down. I'd just like to know in his other complexes just how that integration went with renters that came in. Unfortunately, there are people in this world that, you know, have the perception of people with disabilities. I don't want to live with them. I don't have anything to do with them. Okay? That's wrong, but people are out there and they think that way. I would just like to know, in past experience of other complexes, has he done something similar to this where he's brought in an Abilities First and then going out and renting for affordable housing and workforce, or is this the first time he's done this type of business partnership? Okay, and if he has, how's that experience gone? Has he been able to rent? Okay, there's prejudice out there. It is what it is. It's life, and I like to think that way. Hope most of us don't think that way. Everybody deserves, you know, a chance to live and have a roof over their heads. But if he's done this before, I'd like to get some idea how that happened. If this is the first time he's doing this, well, I'd like to know that too. Obviously, just a track record there. And if Abilities employees are applying, is that something separate, or are they going to go into this lottery, or, as I said, is it East Fishkill residents first, then Abilities, just to get an idea of what, you know, what the process would be. The other thing, also just to bring up real quick, you know, affordable housing, Section 8, workforce. You know, I'm just trying to grasp. It's difficult to live in the town these days. We have a lot of vacant commercial space. Route 9 corridor is empty. You know, are we looking to bring residents, as he mentioned, out from outside or from here? People that work within the community is fine, but it's very difficult to live in East Fishkill, like anywhere else. Things are going up. Somebody making $31,000 or $35,000 in a one-bedroom apartment, I find that very difficult for them to be able to live in this community. So, again, just, you know, the economics of it all. Okay, somebody's paying $500-600 a month rent. Their take-home is $25,000 plus all other living expenses. Can they really afford to live here, even paying $500 a rent? And if everyone is being vetted, that means is one person eligible? Is two people eligible? Okay, if it's a married couple, are they getting a one-bedroom? Are they, you know, is there any requirement if they're not married? Is it boyfriend, girlfriend, or just two people that have a relationship? Okay, well, they're partners and there's one bedroom. Income, you know, how is he doing that? Just like to understand the people that looking to attract to the complex, can they truly afford to live here?
We can ask him to clarify that, but I
Okay.
also think that there's a lot of detail in the application in the planning office that provides that as well. But
Okay, and
we'll
again,
ask
just
him.
getting back to the traffic, which was brought up, I don't want to be repetitive in terms of the feasibility study with the traffic. I think that really needs to be looked at. Okay, I mean, I'm there all the time driving. Doesn't matter what time of day. I can't make a left or a right turn. It's 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes sometimes. So I think somebody really needs to go sit there and truly count cars, you know, 7 in the morning, all the way through, okay? And then the other thing you also have to think about is, although it's really not going to affect the area, but further down, Fishkill Plains and Van Wyck, the school district's bus depot and bus parking is moving to those two schools, okay, next year. So there's going to be a lot more bus traffic coming out onto 82, onto 52, onto Lake Walton, in that area. So again, there's a lot more traffic, and that's all day for the buses, because this is where they're going to congregate, because this is where they're going to park at the end of the day. Okay? Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Ken, can I just come back up for a couple of these questions? And then Jeff, maybe you can let us know, but I know we talked about the lottery. If you have more applications than units available, is there a preference given to local residents, or is it truly a lottery? And if somebody from Iowa applies and they qualify and they're relocating, they have the same consideration?
They have the same consideration. There's no preference.
Is that something that, that you control, or is that something that's required based on the program that you're putting in place here with the state and the tax credits?
I don't control it. It is preferences in the past have been granted in different communities that I'm aware of. However, there seems to be some questions moving forward on whether that complies with certain statutes and laws. For example,
Local, state, federal?
well, I would say federal. For example, I asked a question recently in a different town, and the question was, can you set aside X number of units and give preference for like volunteer firemen?
We've done that here.
I asked the question. The answer I got was, in order to do that, there's a process. There would have to be a documented study, and I just got this answer, so I don't know all the details, but there would have to be a detailed study to document the need and so forth and so on in order to comply with all the statutes and laws when granting preferences.
Is that just because of the workforce housing, or?
I'm not.
Because we've done that in past development.
Right, right, and other communities have as well.
So Michelle, you look like you have information.
I believe, I mean, I can look into it, but I believe it has to do with the Fair Housing Act.
Fair Housing, so that's federal?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We get away with that.
Okay.
Thanks. Did you have another?
I think that also answers the question about whether even if an Abilities First employee applied, they would have the same co-equal treatment of anyone
and they have to
else
go
that
through the same
applies.
vetting process as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Question about
With regard,
first and then partnering?
I'm sorry, I wasn't done. Give me a chance. Ken, the other question that was raised is how you treat multiple residents in the same unit, whether they're married, not married, et cetera. The income verification for both residents, is it a total income for all residents? How does that work?
It's total income for all the residents.
Can't exceed the...
It can't. It can't. And that income level is for your first year. After your first year, your income can go up dramatically. Your income can go up to 130% of the area median income, which is pretty substantial. So at the time of initial occupancy is when we document everybody's income. And then every year we recertify people. And let's say you have a case, let's say you have a mom and a son, and the son, we've had cases where, they come home from the service, they move back in with mom or so forth and so on, and they have a 2-bedroom, and he goes out and gets a job. Their income can go above what the limit is, as long as it's after the first year. After the first year, you don't have to leave the apartment, as long as your income does not exceed 130% of the area median income.
Of the median income?
Yeah.
Is that the median income of the county or of the town?
Of the county.
Of the county.
Dutchess County. The question that was asked, how is the partnership structured? In all of our tax credit deals, I think all of them, we always have a not-for-profit partner. Some are referred to as not-for-profit sponsors or so forth and so on. In this case here, Abilities First is going to take a more active role, because they are going to have, these tenants, they're going to have an on-site office to provide the supportive services for the special needs tenants. So the way the partnership works is we are the general partners. The Carneys are the general partners. The Carneys give the guarantees. The guarantees, the tax credit people are not going to put in, like I said earlier, $9 million unless all they want to worry about is every year get a tax return and have the credits and so forth flow to them. So they want a guarantee. And the Carneys are the guarantors. With that, Abilities First will be a partner in this development. On the GP side, what we envision is the Carneys will own 80%, Abilities First will own 20%. It's a structure that we've used on partners with a not-for-profit on Westchester. It's 75-25. We're partners on a deal with RSS, a mental health provider, where it's actually a similar split. So,
is this the first time with Abilities First, though?
It's the first time with Abilities First. It is. It is. We have partnered with probably 6 different not-for-profits throughout the Hudson Valley, and it's worked very, very well. This RSS, we met 2 years ago on a handshake. They heard about us. They checked us out, and they came into a tax credit deal. Didn't know anything about it, and we kind of held their hand. We broke ground. The development is almost finished, and now they've invited us, based on our success and our partnership. They've invited us to partner with them on a larger deal outside of Albany. And we'll be heading up there. We've partnered with two different not-for-profits in Westchester, RSS, and then not-for-profit here, and a not-for-profit in Sullivan County.
Is there an advantage to partnering with a non-for-profit, or, I mean, is there a reason for that? Or,
well,
because it sounds like you're doing that, I don't know if it's out of the good of your heart, or there's an investment reason for that.
It's the model we've always done. Since we did our first tax credit deal back in 97, 98, I was actually invited into a deal by a not-for-profit. It was their deal, and they were looking for a private developer who would give the guarantees. The not-for-profit didn't have the balance sheet or the stomach to guarantee and take on the risk. So it is our model. That being said, just a little bit about the history here. Where Abilities First school and office is located in the town of Poughkeepsie, we had looked at their site and an adjoining site to see if we could not do something similar in the town of Poughkeepsie. So we started a discussion probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and my son Sean and I went and met with Ellen and Jeff, and we've been doing this a while, and I can tell if something's going to work. And I had an attorney one time who told me, I went to him, I was doing my first project in Beacon, and I bought 3 buildings. But the problem was the access behind the buildings was an easement. And the easement was between my 3 buildings and another building. So the planning board wouldn't give me final approval until I proved to him that that easement was good. So I went to this attorney that I was referred to up in Poughkeepsie, and I waited an hour to see him. I walked in, and he took a look at the easement. He shook his head. I said, "The easement's good? There's no problem with the easement?" He goes, "Son, easement's fine." He says, "Easements aren't problems. People, now, there's your problem." So the point is, with partners, what we look for, we know right away if it's going to work. We know a few people on their board, and we've met, and it's the same feel we've gotten from a couple other not-for-profits. We've met 2 other not-for-profits in the last year that Sean and I went with. We went around, looked at some of our developments. They told us what they wanted to do. It wasn't the right feel. It didn't work. This is going to work, and I think they do God's work, and I think also I've always wanted to. I believe it was a very good question. Some people's perception of people with developmental disabilities. How is that going to affect it? When we've always kind of been cutting edge. We did the first, what was known as intergenerational development in the Hudson Valley, where we were the first guys to take senior housing and put them, with workforce and see how it would work. And there were a lot of questions. How's it going to work, and so forth and so on. Well, it did work. We were the first guys to do supportive housing for veterans, challenging project and challenging, the whole process is challenging. But we were able to build supportive services on site with a couple different not-for-profit service providers. And with that support, the deal works. So is this our first deal with Abilities First? Yes. But it's not the first time that we've done a special needs project, and it's not the first time we've partnered with a not-for-profit. And listen, partners, we all have to have the same goals. And, I believe we do. And I'm convinced. I wouldn't sign on the bottom line. When I go to that closing and I sign and I give my guarantees for millions and millions of dollars, and everything, the last 25 years is on the line every time I go, I have to be sure that it's right, and this one's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam, the next name? John?
Looking at my watch, I think a fellow Hudson Valley born and raised person is on national television right now. Thank you for staying into late night time frame. As many other speakers have said earlier this evening, I've lived in the town of East Fishkill for a long time. Was born and raised in Fishkill. I live on a piece of property and pay taxes on a full acre, and certainly have concerns that are echoed by many people here. But this evening I come here as a pardon me. As a former board member and board chair for Abilities First. I joined the organization as a member of the business community because I was asked to take on a leadership role. During my time on board, one of our daughters was born. And I come here as a very staunch supporter of Abilities First for the services that were provided to my daughter. My daughter goes to Gayhead, and I think it's outstanding that we've got somebody here with strong ties to the school. I'm not overly familiar with the process, but I believe from my past experience that sometimes communication with exactly what's going on with the school district is a little difficult for you to read the tea leaves.
That's a fair statement.
Provide provide as much information as you can. During my time on the board at Abilities First, the organization bought and acquired several homes in Dutchess County. The organization itself owns 8 homes. Before my daughter was born, as a board member, I attended hearings like this. People said some of the things that you indicated that people said. I will tell you very anecdotally that one evening at a board meeting, 3 adult women came to the board meeting to talk about how things were going in their group home. And they played in a soccer league for adults with disabilities. And some of the people that had not wanted them to be their neighbors came to their soccer games because I know I was proud to be a volunteer on the board for Abilities First and know the kind of commitment that the organization had to being a good neighbor, to maintaining the properties, and to providing services for the residents in those homes. So I think that the kinds of services that are provided by the organization to people to fellow human beings are a critical consideration, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam? Jim? Jim D'Amato? Okay. We'll come back to Jim at the end in case he stepped out. Irma?
Hi, I'm Irma Porfero, and most of the issues that I have with this project have been addressed already. I totally agree that a project like this needs to be in the town, but I question the traffic. I live on 82. I cannot get out of my driveway, and it's not just during peak hours, and Toll Brothers has not finished building yet. So what happens then? Plus this, plus Toll Brothers, plus they're talking about extra busing. This is a major issue to us. Also, the historical home has not been addressed. I would like to know who is going to pay for the maintenance and do the maintenance on this? Or are they going to let it deteriorate, as so many of our homes in this area have?
No,
And when
as
they
with the-
deteriorate, they get bulldozed.
As with the prior application, this applicant is also committed to maintaining that house and actually making it the caretaker's house.
Yeah, but
So
will
the
it be
expectation is
maintained?
it would be maintained, absolutely, and actually would be lived in.
Okay. And the other issue that I have, not with this project, but with projects in general, is you're going to provide, the town is going to provide water and sewer. But we have so many places that we need it that have been existing, and we cannot get it. And I wish those concerns would be addressed. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Almost.
I am not in favor of this project, okay, not at all. The area, it's, Route 82 is not the right place. It's going to be, it's overcrowded now. And if one child has to be moved to a different school, it's unacceptable. Okay, now these people, this is your first go-around with Abilities First? If you first use them. Probably because you can never get approval without it. First of all, we don't need it. We're going to get extra police to police the area. Now, tax break. What are we talking about, a tax break? Is he getting a tax break?
The applicant, I think, spoke of a tax advantage to the financing of the project, but that doesn't have to do with.
But what
real
does the
estate
town of
taxes.
East Fishkill get for all these people to live there?
The expectation right now is that there would be normal property and school taxes paid by the
Well, we don't have an idea about how much?
That's, it's not the purview of the planning board. John, I'm not sure who sets those numbers, but.
It's not in the purview of the planning board, but there is a formula the state has for taxing rental properties like this one.
The state has.
Yeah, the state, there's real property law. The gentleman
Okay.
spoke about it before.
Now, do you get state funding for your housing? Does the state subsidize this housing?
It's not subsidized housing, but there is a program that is through the state that
And the
allows
state could
financing of the
tell them
construction.
who to put in there?
That I know.
The state can't tell you who to put in there?
No, the state would, and I'm not even sure that it's the state, but the affordable housing has income levels, but it doesn't specify specific individuals. It has income level requirements.
Look, again, it's late at night, everybody wants to go home. It's a terrible idea. Most of the people don't want it. And, you know, we the people.
Oh, sure, Jeff.
I just want to say that I agree with everything that Ken said about our partnership. We believe in it very strongly. But I think it's important for everybody to know that although this is the first time we're partnering together with a DD provider like us, it's not the first time this is being done. It's a new model for our entire service industry. So you'll see this model in the future again. And in fact, we were just at a ribbon-cutting ceremony this morning in Middletown for a model that partnered with a company called Occupations in Orange County. And they do the exact same work that we do. So this is...
Thank you. Lorraine?
Hi, my name is Lorraine Blazak, and I've lived here since about 1979. One of the reasons we bought was because we liked the town and because it had 1 acre zoning. I understand the need to build apartments, but 68 units on less than 9 buildable acres is just an amazing density. There has to be a better choice. There were several other concerns that I had. One of them was there is a problem, or there was a problem, with the water supply. And has that been resolved? My understanding was that the county water supply, by the time it reached Hopewell, had issues.
Right. Scott, I guess I'm looking at you. I know
Well,
what you're
the answer to that
referring
is
to.
twofold. The county is embarked on installing filters on their system, which they plan on having operational, I believe, in 2016.
So we're going to add more people before we know whether these filters are in place and actually work.
And the second part of that equation is that the town's developing a well field at the New Cannon property that could also provide water for this development.
Okay.
So if the filters don't come through, we'll come through.
I thought that well was supposed to be designated.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, we'll let you come back up, but we're going to...
Yeah, just a couple things on water. The developer is extending the water service at their expense. So it's not the town that's putting in the water system, it's the developer. Anyone in that immediate area that has a water problem would benefit from that. Okay, as far as our capacity, currently we have 2 production wells that will produce about 600,000 gallons a day. We have identified right now about 200,000 gallons of demand. Ryan Drive, if that happens, is another 100,000. So we're about half of what our capacity is, even if Ryan Drive comes on, and we have room for more wells. So, I mean, we have plenty of water.
Okay. So then my basic concern is...
Folks, I'm sorry, I'm hearing a lot of conversation. It does get picked up on the mics. We just need everybody to be respectful of the speaker.
Okay, so my basic concern is the density. That I simply don't understand how that was even considered, that many families on that small a piece of property. Because from some of the pictures, it looks like there's a lot of land surrounding those buildings. But if you look at the front of these buildings, there can't be more than 2 feet from the sidewalk to the building itself, to the entrance. It simply has to be close. I had one other question, too. Mr. Kearney said, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, I apologize if I'm not, that you had built a similar community in Somers. Was that affordable housing or was that senior housing?
Affordable senior housing.
Okay, thank you.
I'll get through all of our speakers, and then I'll ask if there's anybody who spoke who wants to come back up. Fred? Fred, going once? Twice? Okay, Fred may have left the building. Mary?
Hello. My name is Mary Seminara. First of all, thanks for staying so late and for all the information. I think I've learned a lot here tonight, but I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
And I was actually reading the zoning laws about workforce housing. And one of the, Section F, subsection 3, says that first preferences will be given to existing residents of the town of East Fishkill. Now, clearly, that's not what's been told tonight. We have a lottery system that anybody can then put in an application, and if they qualify, they're given a chance to have one of these apartments. So how is the town of East Fishkill actually benefiting from this opportunity if it's not actually related to the people who live here? And that really hasn't been addressed. So I want to follow up on something Lorraine said also. Also in this regulation, there's a discussion about how much sort of, I forget what the term is. Oh, the maximum, the development coverage of a piece of land. Do we have a percentage of what is left over that's still green of the 7+ acres that's actually developable?
Yes, and Christian, I don't know if we have that at our fingertips, but it will be on the plan itself. It should show the coverage and the remaining acres.
And
It's
is
usually
that-
a calculation? We do the calculation of impervious surface.
Right, impervious surface. And does that include that land bank stuff that may be parking
Yes,
spaces?
the impervious calculation has to include the land bank because we may need to build it.
Okay. And that number is somewhere and somebody can get that, dig that out?
Yes. I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead. 26%. It's 26%.
Okay, thank you. And that's just of the 7 acres and not all of the dark green stuff around?
It should be of the entire site. That's what the calculation typically is.
Yeah, but you can't build on all 9 acres because of the wetland and the slope and all that other stuff.
Yeah, it's.
Oh, that's tricky. Okay. All right, where's the pedestrian corridor going from this property to the town?
Presumably it would be people walking along Route 82.
Okay, so there's no sidewalks, and that's not in the
Not at
plan?
this
That doesn't have to be in the plan?
That's correct.
Okay. I was curious about the lighting plan, and specifically, we saw the nice pictures of how this development looks to the folks on 82, and it looks great after 20 years when those trees are going to be full-size. But for those of us who live on the other side of the railroad track, this particular property is on a higher elevation than those of us who live on the other side of the railroad tracks, where there's really been no concern about any screening, any noise buffer, and I'm also curious of how the lighting is going to look for those of us who have a direct line of sight over the railroad tracks.
It's a fair question. I don't think we have completed the landscape or the lighting plan yet.
Well,
That's something that's still ongoing.
And
so
as you do, I would hope that you consider those of us who are neighbors on the other side.
It's a fair point.
Thank you. I have one more question, because so many of my neighbors have actually raised a lot of the questions that have been in my mind as well. But there was one thing during the discussion of the lottery and bringing on people and the interview process. And there was one statement made by the developer who said that he would discount those people who don't fit in. And that was kind of a weird thing to say, because I'm guessing that there's probably some non-discrimination clauses, and I didn't know if that was code for some other things. I don't know who would not fit in after they've passed a criminal background check or a credit check. So I would like to understand that further, and I'm going to say something that's probably politically incorrect here, but maybe I'll just leave that. But I'm just curious as to who does not fit
We'll
in.
ask that to be addressed. That's
Thank you.
fine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Come on back up, Ken, if you don't mind. We need to catch you on the mic.
I believe that was taken out of context. I think it was addressed when I said that if somebody is over income and they don't fit. In other words, if you're over income and you make too much money, or if you don't make enough money, there's no sense proceeding. I think that comment was taken out of context.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, let's make a note. I know we're still in the process of reviewing some of the layers of the plan, so lighting and landscaping, we want to make sure from all views, all residents in the surrounding area. And then, John, this...
I just want to address one issue of comments made relative to landscape. We have provided some screening to the rear of the property based on some site visits we made with the leaves down, with benefit to the properties that are located on the other side of the track. So to the contrary, we have taken that into account. I'm sure Michelle's office will take a closer look at that. We also have looked at lighting throughout the entire property by providing a photometric plan. So I just want to clarify.
I wasn't trying to suggest you hadn't, but we
well,
haven't
the comment,
finished our
the comment
review
was
of it
made.
yet.
Correct.
Yeah.
I wasn't referring to your comment. I was referring to the speaker's comment that we hadn't addressed it at all. And we
Okay.
had.
Well, we'll, obviously, as our town professionals take a look at the plan, we take all of our feedback from these meetings into consideration. So, John, just with regard to when our regulation says something that is incompatible with federal law,
Right.
can you just give us, are you comfortable giving us just an explanation that it doesn't strike the entire code, it strikes
Right.
that?
There's a severability clause in the code, and if there's 150 sections of the code and one is found unconstitutional, that doesn't void the other 149.
The reason I asked John to provide that explanation is because, to your point, the special permit may say that preference needs to be given to East Fishkill residents, but if that provision within the code is unconstitutional or doesn't meet federal regulation requirements, then we can't uphold that as the town. It actually effectively becomes severed from the code. It doesn't invalidate the whole code, it just invalidates that section. So just so that you understand, we'll look at that section of the code, we'll look at the Federal Home Administration, FHA rules, and we'll have a response for that the next time we bring this application back to you. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But I just wanted to say that that's a fair point. I do remember that being in the code, so we need to address it, and we'll figure out whether it's enforceable, and if it's not enforceable, we'll explain why it isn't and what federal law actually overrides it. Okay. Do we have anyone else on the list? Okay, I know there might have been a few folks that wanted it. Ma'am, I know you wanted to come on. Why don't you come on back up? And I apologize, I don't remember your name.
Ann Culver.
Ann, thank you.
And I have
Sorry.
actually lived in East Fishkill since the 60s. I am an old-time resident, and I know the Farfaros, I've known them well. I want to address the water really quickly because I live on the Superfund site. I have lived in Hopewell Precision Superfund site for a long time. We were told that first preference for that water was going to be meeting our needs. I'm sorry, but our needs. In the time I have lived through this, I have had my daughter graduate from high school, my daughter graduate with a bachelor's, Matt graduated from high school, David somehow got an associate's, my daughter got a master's, my daughter got engaged. My daughter became a noted employee of Mount St. Mary College and wrote papers with Dr. Miller and Dr. Burlinghoff. My daughter got married, and I have a grandchild. And I'm still living with crap water. So I'm sorry. I think that needs to be taken into consideration, too. You have 200-plus families up there, and it hasn't been a pretty sight. My mother went to her death believing she caused my son's disability because he was born when we lived up there. So, with that being said, I looked at this again, and Dr. Fox, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I see two big glaring issues with this the more I listen to people talk. One, you're going to have a fair number of children, there's no play space. Two, I'm very involved in the disabilities community. I'm very involved with the Challenger activities in Dutchess County. I was one of the persons who created a Challenger activity and am involved in it. There's no outside gathering space. And I know one of my son's favorite things to do when they're all together is they gather. Am I not right? And these kids can party and gather from here to Kingdom Come, even as young adults. There's no outside pavilion space picnic table, gazebo for them. And I think that's a really glaring issue. And my other question is, again, having worked in the city of Newburgh and dealt with low-income families, how many residents per unit are you going to allow? Because I have been in 3-bedroom apartments in the city of Newburgh where there might be 8 or 9 residents because the dining room got converted because, well, you know, she's not on the lease, but she came up to visit and she broke up with her boyfriend and she's got 2 kids and I couldn't send her back. What controls are there going to be for something like that?
Okay.
Just throwing it out.
Thank you.
We do have quite a bit of amenities. I'll just point them out if they weren't clear, because we didn't hit them. We have a community room off the end of what is Building 4. That community room is quite large. AJ may be able to give the square footage. The rear of that has a patio area with picnic tables, et cetera. We have a gazebo, which is located right here between buildings 3 and 4. We have a children's playground, which is fenced right here. And then we have a play field, which is a rectangular, graded off grassed area here, which can be used for field sports. So your code does require us to provide that type of recreation. We have included it in the plan.
Thank you. With regard to the maximum number of residents per unit, do you have a maximum number for the 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units? And do you have a way to enforce it?
The maximum is 2 person per bedroom. The one bedrooms are normally 1 person, but it is 2 maximum. As far as enforcing it, again, it comes back to management. From time to time, and you can have this in the senior community. We recognize either the on-site superintendent or the on-site manager will say, you know, I think somebody may be staying there who's not supposed to be staying there. So we go and we deal with it. First thing we do is we contact the tenant and bring them down, and we ask to, is that person staying here? No, they're not staying here. Okay. And then we continue to monitor it. At times, we've actually had people leave because they didn't want to follow or obey our rules. You know, there's a certain process. We'll ask that person who is just, in the case of, we just went through this with the senior, where a family member tried to claim that they were the caretaker, and they weren't really staying there. So we asked them for a lease. Tell me where you're living. Show me where you're living. And they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. So they were wrong, and you know, they left before their relative was going to lose their apartment. So again, it comes down to management. It comes down to having you know, eyes and ears there.
Do your lease documents actually specify the maximum occupancy, or do your lease documents specify exactly who will be living in the unit?
Our lease documents specify everybody who's going to be living in that apartment. Because everybody who's living in that apartment, they're in violation of their, not only in violation of their lease, I'm in violation of the tax credit statute, because that person who's living there, their income is not included in the income verification. So I'm in danger of having, being what's known as out of compliance. If you're out of compliance with tax credits, there's a severe penalty. So we are in this business where property managers, property owners are highly motivated to ensure that only people who are on that lease are living there. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there anyone else who would like to offer comment? You can come on back up. Sure, come on back up for us.
You had mentioned earlier that the zoning was already changed?
Just come on back up to the mic. Yes.
You said earlier the zoning was changed?
With the original application that was called Homesteads, there was a zoning change that was put before the town board, and the town board did approve that zoning change. So
They approved it at a public forum?
Yes, they did.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that zoning is the zoning that actually permits this development on this particular site. You can come on back up, I'm sure.
I know I had mentioned before something about, that there
And
was...
folks, I'm sorry, folks in the audience, we're still picking up the wrong, if we could just be respectful of the person at the podium.
I know I had brought up the pilot agreements before and the possibility for that, and Mr. Kearney had not claimed, they're not sure what they're going to do. I could probably guess, but, and I'm not super familiar with that because I've never negotiated a pilot agreement. Who would they negotiate an agreement with? If I understand, it's the town?
That is an excellent question that I do not know the answer to. John, do you know?
It definitely is the town, and then oftentimes you do a pilot agreement with the surrounding
John,
village and county.
we can't hear you.
Yeah, the pilot agreement will be negotiated with the town, and oftentimes a pilot agreement involves a county and a village.
And does the public have any say in that negotiation or no?
It's approved at a public forum.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the hearing, after the introduction of the plan, we do have a resolution for reaffirmation of the negative declaration. So for the members of the public that may be here tonight, just so you know, this is about a 10-page document. Normally, I would read it in full, and I would read every word. I'm very aware of what time it is, and we need to finish this action before we adjourn the public hearing to a date certain for you. So if it would be all right, I think, members of the board, I'd like to offer, and this is copies, so you can each take one if you'd like. I'd like to offer this in summary, but I want to assure everyone that a full copy of the document will be available in the planning office. But with your okay, I'd like to just bullet point the resolution rather than read it in full. Yes?
I'm just unclear on what that means.
Sure. What this means, in order for the applicant to actually obtain a special permit from the town board, the planning board needs to reaffirm a negative declaration. And a negative declaration says that we have looked at the environmental concerns on the property, and I'll read you, I'll bullet point what those concerns are and how they've been addressed. But it says that we've looked at those and we feel that the plan adequately addresses them. And so we're comfortable not requiring the applicant to do further in-depth studies or things like that, that we're comfortable that our record is complete enough to make an environmental determination.
The planning board is the lead agency here.
And I'm sorry?
The planning board's lead agency.
That's correct. As the lead agent, it's our responsibility to do that, but the applicant can't move forward to the town board to obtain a special permit through the zoning code until they have this determination. So that, sure. And I just want to make sure, I'm not sure we heard you speak, so if we don't have your name for our records, we just need to make sure.
Brian Murphy.
Brian Murphy?
Very exciting tonight. I'm just unclear on the affirmation that you're going to read in the bullet points. Basically, you're approving any history or any documents that have taken place. You're approving those documents, whether they're from 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I'm just unclear on what you're presenting.
Right.
And you're going to vote on that and say, okay, you guys can go ahead.
Can go ahead to the town board for a special permit, correct? But they won't be done with their site plan and with the things that we're talking about for the changes to the site plan. Some people tonight have made suggestions for screening and
Right, and all the
traffic
concerns
and that
about
sort of
traffic
thing.
and things like that, will they still be addressed, or are you approving studies that have already taken place?
The negative declaration absolutely approves the studies that have already taken place. And it's the responsibility of the planning board to have understood what those studies are, to have worked with our town professionals, to have listened to public comment, and then make our judgment call on them. That's
Right,
part of
and
what
we-
our responsibility is.
And we appreciate the planning board's work, absolutely. Just as a resident, as a layperson, there were a lot of concerns that were addressed tonight and brought up as questions. And now, if you guys approve whatever's in front of you, does that mean that those concerns can't be addressed as well? We've already approved the traffic in this meeting tonight, or we've approved some of the things that we talked about tonight. How could they be readdressed?
And Michelle, if you want
Am I-
to
am I-
weigh in, you can,
if
but
I'm-
I'll...
If I'm off base, just let me know, because I just don't understand.
I'll give you my opinion, and again, this
Great.
is something that the board has to vote on, so this is not, it's not exclusively any one member of the board's decision, but my familiarity with this application, we've been working with this application for several years now. Yes, this is a new applicant. Yes, we've been able to work with this applicant to make additional improvements to the plan. But from a seeker perspective, from the study of the traffic and our understanding of what the traffic study says, that's just one example, but there's other examples of environmental impact. I'm comfortable with offering the resolution to reaffirm the negative declaration. And what that means, because I know that's a lot of words, that's just the title on the document. What that means is that the board is saying, if they approve this resolution, the board is saying that we are comfortable that we have looked at the appropriate factors to make that determination. So as I walk through the factors, I think there's about 14 of them in the document. And yes, we are saying that we're comfortable with that.
I have a question. How can we say that when a lot of new information about the Rockland School District was brought up today, and now we're going to reaffirm something that was done 2 years ago?
That's kind of my, that's exactly my
And
point.
I understand your point. And
Right.
I'm kind of on the same page with you.
That's fine.
And,
And I think aside from the school district information, I'm comfortable that we didn't hear anything that would have impacted any of the other items, but the school district information is new.
And the traffic.
I didn't feel
I
like the
understand.
traffic had changed from the
You know
original
what,
application.
and for me personally, your comfort level is very high, only because you've been looking at this for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I had documents in front of me that I could look at for 2 years, that I would get a sense of, I'm extremely comfortable with this, and I feel that any new information wouldn't bring anything more to light. Tonight, we heard a lot of new information, a lot of concerns. And my concern is that we're voting on something and reaffirming not something that's necessarily negative, because that connotation...
I know, it's an odd title.
Right, so it's kind of like saying, well, we're not really for it, but we're going to vote on it. You know, so I don't understand that.
No, very specifically, the vote would be, do we agree that we have done the appropriate environmental review, or do we not agree? That's what the vote will be.
So it's...
So the fancy title, the bottom line is, that's what this document,
So environmental review would include traffic, community
it will
impact,
include 14 different things. It's going to have all of that in it, yes.
and the board's going to vote on that tonight, saying, we've reviewed everything and we're good with this.
no, the vote hasn't taken place yet. Doesn't mean-
Okay.
That's correct. It's
That
a
was my
vote.
Several of us
concern.
on here that are
I'm
saying
kind of
no.
like,
It's okay.
you know. Just
Yes,
to understand the
but that is what
process,
that
Lori.
means.
I know it's late and...
No, and that's
know,
part of why I wanted
I
to
just
say it at
couldn't
the
wait to get
beginning
up
of the
to
meeting,
speak.
is
No, I'm
because
just kidding.
this is a slightly unusual process for us,
Right.
because this applicant now has to go to a town board. We have to finish our seeker process before we can finish our site plan and tweaking our site plan.
What do you mean secret process?
State Environmental Quality Review Act is
Okay,
what
thank you.
it's what this negative declaration applies to. It's saying that according to state guidelines, the responsibility of the planning board is to identify all those things that may impact the environment. Environment meaning traffic, visual impacts, and things like that, not just, wetlands.
Right.
Fiscal matters.
Fiscal matters.
Well, it's not really a legal issue, it's really the impact that it has in the community, that's all.
Right.
And I'm just trying to understand. So
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. So Michelle, I know, again, this is a somewhat unusual process for us to go through. Was there anything that we need to change within the document as we go? I can stop at each point and we can review it. I think the school district information was definitely different. I'm not sure with the reduction in the impact from this application, whether it will have an impact on the seeker finding or not. So I guess I'm looking for direction.
Yeah, basically what the reaffirmation of the negative declaration is saying is that the lead agency feels as though the applicant has provided a reasoned explanation of what the potential environmental impacts are of the project. And I'm using environment to include all of the technical areas we just described. And that they can say with reasonable certainty that the project would not have a significant, and that's the threshold, significant effect on the environment, okay? And some of that is, there's some thresholds that are established that we know. Traffic is actually a good example, because there are certain times when you reach a vehicle trip number that automatically triggers an impact. There are other categories where it's a lot less clear what ultimately becomes an impact and what is ultimately a decision of a lead agency about what should happen in a project, and what what benefits outweigh the cons, essentially. So what this document says is that there's been this reasoned elaboration, there's been documentation provided about what the potential environmental impacts are, and the planning board is comfortable making a decision one way or the other if there are significant adverse environmental impacts related to the project. After that is done, the town board can make a decision on whether or not they will grant a special permit for the site. But they have to have the secret process complete before they can even have that discussion. And then, after that, the planning board has to review whatever conditions. If the town board decides to grant a special permit, the planning board has to look at whatever conditions may have been applied to that special permit, and also do a site plan review. And during that site plan review, additional information regarding landscaping and buffering may come back, and the planning board may request the applicant to provide additional landscape plantings or reduced lighting levels or something during the site plan review.
So with regard specifically to the school district, we have documentation from the school district itself stating that they can accommodate up to 45 children. We have documentation in our record stating that the maximum number of children expected with the reduced bedroom count, fewer 3-bedroom units, many more 1- and 2-bedroom units, that the maximum number of students from this development would be 30. And I'm paraphrasing, but I'll read this in more detail in a second. But would maximum number be 30 and expected number would be 21. The studies that we talked about, the additional information we'll bring into our record. I don't know how that would change this determination. That's, I guess, what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something you
The documentation
need.
we have is from 2011. I mean, that's what you're referring to, right? Or you're not?
I'm referring to the current record,
Yeah,
yes.
the current record, which...
Well, and the additional information from this evening stating that the school has dropped from 1,048 students down to 924.
Which is still at capacity. With a report that
No,
was
the
rejected.
948 was at near capacity.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. In terms of, some of that data, in terms of enrollment, we had a surge of enrollment, and as a community, we're trying to find out exactly what our total enrollment numbers were in these last 2 weeks. I think we should get that information to find out exactly. You're going off of the report.
I'm not saying we can't do that. I'm just, what I'm asking the board is, let's say enrollment went up 30%. Does that change the impact to this project? The impact from this project?
Yes.
That's the question.
We already have an overcrowding.
It's a question to the board. I'm sorry, it's a question to the board members. I'm not, I understand. I understand.
Last time, with the last applicant, we had a joint meeting of you guys on the town board and the public.
That's
Will there
correct.
be another one?
No. The reason we had that last time, again, was because the zoning amendment was also being considered, and as the lead agency, the planning board helped foster that discussion. But the zoning change has already been made.
Laura, can I ask, if you're going to read this, I mean,
Before I read it, I want to establish whether we actually can offer this tonight if the school district changes are too impactful. If we think it will change the conclusion in the document, then...
Honestly, what I'm wondering about is the build-out at Toll Brothers and the impact on the traffic. I'm struggling with that.
Hello.
I'm sorry.
Can I say
Are you-
something?
You may, we need to have you signed in.
Yeah. My name's Lorraine Longobardo, and I just want to say that you're saying that everything that we addressed, that we brought up to you, didn't matter.
I'm not saying that at all.
That's
Quite
the
the reverse.
impression that I'm getting, because you're going to approve it, they're going to go get the special permit.
I want to be very clear,
Yeah,
though,
explain to me.
I want to be very clear that concluding the seeker process is not an approval of the project.
Okay.
And this public hearing is not over. We will adjourn this public hearing. We've got things that need to be followed up on. We've got different areas.
That's what I mean, you're going to look into all these things that we've brought to your attention.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Can I just say something really quick? Because I think it's kind of silly that we're still here. at
When do we
12:40
say
at night.
no? When do we, no, seriously, I mean,
This is a public hearing, and we have not closed the public hearing, so, sir, I'm going to have you sign in, but if you
Okay,
just give us your name.
I can
for the-
sign in afterwards. I'll
Go
sign
ahead
in
and give us
afterwards.
your name and.
I think it would be imprudent at this time to conclude this hearing, and maybe it should be
No one's
adjourned
concluding the hearing tonight.
for another night. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of variables that are going into this project that really should be addressed. And
No
I
one's
think the
concluding the
next
public hearing
time
tonight.
this comes up in a meeting, it should be the first thing on the docket and not the last thing, because a lot of people thought we were going to be here at 7 o'clock, and it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning, and there's no answer. So we're walking away from here very dissatisfied. And I pay way too much money to live in this town, to live near low-income housing, and I'm very disappointed that this project is even being considered, okay? And I've had enough, okay? I've only lived here 4 years, and I'm considering selling my house because this is going to open Pandora's box, and you know this is not going to be the last one. Thank you.
excuse me, whoa, get him, he's got a sign. He's got a sign.
He did give his name.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
I thought he did.
He did not
No,
give
I
his
thought
name.
he did say
No,
his
he
name.
didn't.
Okay. I thought he said his name when he first started talking.
No, he didn't.
All right.
Madam Chairwoman, I just want to make a clarification relative to the seeker process and where we're at and what we're asking for. You know, you and Michelle have done a good job in trying to describe a very complicated process. Our particular situation is even more complicated because, as the board's fully aware, a negative DEC or a negative declaration under the State Environmental Quality Review Act was adopted for a very similar project. We elected with our application, as you pointed out correctly early on, to piggyback off of that. We didn't rely solely on old studies. We provided updates to all the studies, including traffic, natural resources, stormwater, sewer, water, all of them. What we did also do is we took your negative declaration from the last go-around and showed that we either have a lesser impact or a similar impact, therefore providing justification for where you're heading. I'll point out that the school district impact is one where we showed that we're probably at a level near 50% of the school children that the last applicant had proposed, which had the benefit of a negative declaration. And I'm only pointing that out because we are slightly different than the normal application that comes in seeking a negative declaration, where we're seeking an affirmation of a negative declaration, which is slightly different. I'm only pointing that out. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you to just hold your comment for a moment. I want to finish the discussion I was trying to have with Michelle regarding the impact to the conclusion of community services within this neg deck.
Okay.
So
what was, I'm sorry, what was your question exactly?
So the way this is currently written, this is being based on a conclusion from a 2011 letter from this, actually study done by the school district for Regan Development, projecting number of students and the fact that the school district can absorb the students, et cetera. And we're hearing this evening that there's some additional information. There's conflicting information about capacity and redistricting, things like that. I know that's not a proper term, but.
Well, when the original neg deck was passed, this was the information that they used to say that there was no significant adverse impacts.
Right.
And the question, I guess, that you have to answer or balance is whether or not the information provided would result in a significantly different outcome in your mind about what the capacity could be for the school. Like, in other words, is 30 additional children into the school district as a whole a significant adverse impact? And it may not even be 30. That's the worst case scenario. And it's not one individual school. It's elementary, middle, and high school. So that's ultimately the question. And I guess there's some discrepancies about whether or not the numbers that have been provided are correct. But it was our understanding when we had the information initially that it was directly from the school district that was telling us that there was going to be no significant adverse impact, that they had the capacity for the students.
But it also doesn't mean that we made the right decision back then either.
Right.
So just because it's a lesser impact from what we decided 2 years ago doesn't mean
That's fine.
we made the right decision back then.
That's fine.
So,
But I guess, again, I'm saying, anticipated 21 students with a worst-case scenario of 30 new students, to Michelle's point, against the school district, which is the standard we are expected to measure to. And I understand the emotion of it, and I understand the concern of school buses at the property entrance and things like that, which is a site plan thing, and we can address that with the site plan. But how will additional information we receive from the school district about the school district or within the school district, how will that change this conclusion?
Right, we're talking 21 to 30.
You know what, I don't know. Just a second. I don't know.
Just to throw this out for you.
I'm sorry, just a
We're having
moment,
a
ma'am.
conversation.
Well, this has to do with the school.
Oh, okay,
Just to give you an example.
please, just give us a moment here.
I understand what you're saying about the schools, that it's all within the bandwidth. I'm still struggling with traffic that was updated in 2012. I think there's been a lot of building that around there since
Brendan,
then.
do you have the traffic report? I thought Hopewell Glen was in there.
Well, Mike, in your reference to Toll Brothers, it's a separate project. The traffic was evaluated based on the traffic levels that are out there.
But that project was contemplated in 2012.
Well-
It was in front of us in 2012.
Based on studies done, it says, based on studies done in 2012.
Right, the traffic
A lot
study.
of stuff has happened out there since then.
Actually, the traffic levels on 82 haven't changed much. Toll Brothers has gone in, there hasn't been a lot of COs,
Then
but
when
even
was
the
the
Toll
last
Brothers
study done?
traffic was incorporated into the traffic study.
That's,
No, I can understand what you're saying about the.
When was the last, you're saying it hasn't changed. When was the last time it was
No.
gauged, the traffic levels?
that's not what he said. What he said was,
No.
at the time this study was done,
No.
the additional impact from the surrounding developments, including Hopewell Glen and some of these others, was incorporated because they were known and understood at the time. It's part
Right.
of the existing traffic
I
study.
heard that, but I also heard you say it has not changed appreciably since 2012. Based on
The
what?
projection of
Based
total
on-
traffic
based on
has not
you-
changed
just
appreciably.
my knowledge of the corridor and us taking traffic studies and traffic counts at Palin Road, Fishkill Road, having
you
traffic
was
counters in
thinking about when
82
was-
pretty much for the last 3 years at different
When-
times.
When was the, again, I trust you in those things, but when was the
Well,
last time somebody sat there and counted?
The last one, the last ones that we've seen through here, we saw Stone Ridge Commons on 52 study the intersection of Palin in 82. We took confirmation traffic counts in 82 at the end of last year. So, and the levels are pretty similar. You're always going to get some variation.
What times of the day were these things done?
They are done at various times of the day. We've done 7 to 9, 11 to 1, and 4 to 6. And these are in addition to taking manual traffic counts at intersections where there literally is a person there counting each car. We also use ATR counters, which are automatic traffic recorders that count traffic for a duration of time, being generally several days of data. So.
Ma'am, go ahead.
I want to point out to you that school district data changes so fast. 2 years ago, I worked in a building that was slated to close, This year, we have more applicants that we can fill, and we're over capacity. So going by something from 2012 versus today isn't necessarily valid, because you also haven't taken into account the fact that since 2012, Wappinger School District has cut the amount of students they send to BOCES and has reopened self-contained classrooms in their own district. I believe they brought back, and you can check for me, I believe they brought back 3 of those classrooms to the elementary level. So I don't think you can go by 2012 and say that's appropriate.
I'm sorry? Sure.
I'm not sure exactly what date the study was done. You say 2012, 2012, they also implemented full-day kindergarten, made a major shift in how the district is laid out. But what I'm hearing in the technical, in every environmental impact study that I've ever seen for anything that I've seen in East Fishkill, the district says, we can handle it, whether it's 111 students, 200 students, 10 students, 15 students, 20, we can handle it, we can handle it. The point that I was making is that, and this is not something I don't think you're going to get from the district, because they know they don't have any say in this, and they frankly just don't have the time to deal with, I don't think they have the relationship with the municipalities the way they should. Is the reality is, and what the point I was trying to make is that, yes, there's capacity within that district, but there might be kids, by putting kids in the East Fishkill-based schools in Wappinger Central School District, by trying to put more kids in those schools, Gayhead, Fishkill Plains, Van Wyck, and John Jay, you're potentially forcing East Fishkill residents' children into schools outside of East Fishkill. There is a proposal, like I mentioned, and I will send it to you, where they propose sending kids up from Robinson Lane to Vassar, or Worley Homes was at Myers. So I don't think it's something you're going to get from the district. The district is always just going to say, we can handle it, and that's all they're ever going to say.
But that's kind of our problem, because our requirement is to instruct an applicant, go to the district, and find out whether your project can be accommodated. So what we're trying to quantify is whether these, and I'm going to use the maximum number of 30, whether these 30 students will significantly impact what you're describing. And I don't know that there's additional
I don't know that the
information
district is going to give you the answer that is the reality of what is happening in the district,
So,
unfortunately.
but my point is, I'm not sure that there's any additional information that we would receive that would be different than what you've already described to us. I mean,
I guess my
understand.
question is then, are you just going to strictly go by that document from the district, or is there any consideration to the information?
That's what we're discussing right now.
Okay.
That's what the board is talking about. Michelle, is there a typical standard that we hold to? Is this total number of students against total students in the schools that they would attend? Is it against total students in the district? Is it, because, I mean, the bottom line is we've approved projects with hundreds of units. We've approved projects with, you know, a lot more higher bedroom counts and things like that. So I'm struggling with a project of this size having a significant impact. And I'm not discounting the fact that Wappinger Central School District may have some very significant issues right now. What I'm trying to quantify is whether this particular project is like the straw, or whether there's you know, capacity here for them.
But when
I
do we
don't
say
know.
it? What project is that?
Well,
I don't know.
I know, but you're saying, well, it's just 30, or it's just 100. Is 200 too much?
I'm not saying, I'm trying to have the conversation. I'm
I
trying to
know.
find out whether there's a standard that planning boards can apply for this, because
Well, I
I'm
think
struggling with
if
it.
we know facts, sometimes you just can't go by the standard.
But the fact is that the enrollment is declining. That's a fact.
And
So-
it sounds like there's
You know-
some fact out there that we don't know about either. that-
Excuse me.
Sir, I'm sorry.
You're missing the point.
I'm not missing the point. I'm having the
She's not
discussion.
missing
Okay.
I'm not missing the point.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize.
This is just a conversation we have.
It's, we don't normally have these types of conversations, so typically publicly, but we do have them. What I'm trying to figure out is there a standard we can use? Because the school district, to your point, is going to tell us it's fine. That's what we will hear.
But if we know that there's redistricting that could happen to our East Fishkill kids,
Right?
and we know that could,
So,
and
so
the
will
district's not
this
gonna tell us that,
project
but we
be the
know that that could
significant
be.
impact that causes that to happen?
Right, but I mean.
And I don't know that
from a
we'll answer
legal-
that.
But from a legal standpoint, if the applicant decides to sue the town and the board has, I mean, the school district has said, yes, we can accommodate, you know, for us to sit there and say, no, we're second guessing the school board, you understand where that puts us legally, right? We know that what they're telling us isn't the really straight scoop, you know.
But it is the response we've received.
Right.
And we had an indication that 45 was not a significant impact. The current numbers have been lowered to somewhere between 21 and 30, and that 21 to 30 would be spread, and we don't know the spread, but it would be spread across 3 different schools. So I personally can get comfortable that it's not a significant impact at these levels that we've been presented with, given the additional data that, you know, enrollment in general is going down.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going to just, and I get that we're having this conversation in front of you, and your instinct is to want to correct us or tell us, but let's let the planning board members express their opinions, and we'll walk through this. Michelle, again, is there a standard when the school district is telling us that it's fine?
No, there's no typical standard for schools about what ultimately brings you over capacity. It's usually a discussion with the school and a discussion about whether or not the school has the resources to educate the children that are being proposed in the district. And the indication from the school district on this and a lot of other projects in recent time has been that overall enrollment has been declining and they have the capacity. That's been their response typically on a number of projects recently.
I don't disagree. No, I don't disagree.
So, I mean, that's their response. Whether or not there's a particular impact to a single school is, you know, a different story. However, it's not, that may not rise to the level of being a significant adverse impact. That's what you're ultimately weighing right now. And I would like to point out that this was you already gave a neg deck on this project with more students.
No, I'm comfortable with
so
that, but to Jason's point, that was a point-in-time decision with the information we had at the time. This is a different point-in-time decision with the information we have now, so we need to have this conversation before we move on.
I'm just pointing out the different facts.
but like I said before, it doesn't mean we got it right back then. Just because we approved it.
No, but that's not the threshold. The threshold is that you've made a reasoned elaboration of the facts that you have.
Because the school tells us on every single project.
Because you
we
can't,
can handle it.
well, the case law is that you've made a reasonable elaboration that with the facts that you have, and you're assuming because professionals are saying to you that these are correct facts, and there is integrity in the system theoretically because people have licenses and all sorts of things that are providing these reports, that the information you're getting is correct. It may not always be
We're getting new
correct.
information tonight, though. That could be fact or not be fact. I don't know that.
Right.
Shouldn't we explore it some more? That's my point.
That's the question that that's your job as lead agency to determine.
So Michelle, knowing that, and I'm going to say this, knowing that we don't have an answer for this tonight, does this get carved out of a reaffirmation and deferred to a future date? Does the reaffirmation not move forward? What's the, and John, if this is something we should take to executive session, I should have asked you that first.
That's a thought also.
Are you making a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion to go to executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
To discuss attorney advice involving the secret termination.
So members of the public, we're going to go into what's called executive session We're going to have a discussion with our professionals and our attorneys. It's specifically for an attorney consultation regarding the law and how this document needs to work. When we come back from that, we'll actually leave the room for a few minutes, and we'll come back from that, and we'll continue with the hearing, and we'll explain to you what we've discussed and what we've decided.
It'll be Wednesday.